She was drowning in the Black Sea, and the man who saved her might have been the reason she needed saving. On a cliffside in southern Italy, Arya Ellis comes for closure and finds a kingdom of ghosts. A ruined stone house, salt in the air, cameras hidden in the corners. Then Sebastian Biano, tailored linen, sea green eyes, violence under perfect control. He watches her like a man reading the final page before the book is done. And when the truth finally breaks open, it does not whisper. It detonates. Her mother was Mafia royalty. Her home was built for war. And the man she should fear most is already holding her heartbeat in his hands.
Feels. And so a world ends, not in fire, but in the silent, paralyzing shock of lungs filling with ice-cold water. The first frame is the last. Arya Ellis, a psychologist of 25, surrendering to the black depths of the Mediterranean. Feels. She was a woman built of pure logic, a Detroiter whose life was an architecture of careful plans. It was this precision that led her here to Scario, Italy, with one goal: liquidate an inheritance, build a future. The plan was perfect. Feels. But plans do not account for a man like Sebastian Biano, heir to a Sicilian crime family. Now, 2 weeks after he crashed into her world, as she descends into the abyss, the entire structure of her logic is nothing but ruin. Feels. All that was left was the searing imprint of Sebastian Biano's eyes, the phantom sensation of his touch, and a single, catastrophic question: is he safe? A total betrayal of her own nature. For the first time, intuition had drowned her intellect. Feels. As the darkness took her, her final thought was not for herself, but for the awful, staggering truth of how she got here. Cut to 2 weeks earlier. Picture Arya arriving in Scario, carrying a psychological burden heavier than any suitcase. The journey feels a disorienting haze, and then she sees it. The house perched over the sea like a monument to ruin. Its shutters faded, its roof fractured, the very path to its door slowly being devoured by the wild. Feels. She sweeps a strand of auburn hair from her forehead, a useless gesture against the gaping chasm between what was promised and what is. The estate agent, Rico Alfonsi, speculates aloud. Signora Venti, if you sell as is, maybe 600,000 euros. Feels. Venti, a name from a life that wasn't hers. I'm Arya Ellis. She corrects him, a quiet, desperate claim to her own identity. Rico just nods. My apologies, Signora Ellis. He raises a finger, but consider this. Rent it for 2 months. Feels. Put that money into restoration. After that, its value could climb to 2 million, possibly more. The math is brutal, inescapable. 2 months' rent funds the work, lets her stay in the guest house to supervise, Feels, and turns this wreck into the foundation of her new life. This, she tells herself, is the only logical move. Feels. The motel room is cold, sterile, the air thick with the smell of bleach. On her laptop, the face of her friend Jennifer is touching doubt. My plan is to rent it out, Jen. Jennifer's eyebrow a sark into disbelief. Rent it? Arya, Feels. You don't have the money for repairs. Arya leans into the camera, her voice a performance of confidence she does not feel. I know, but a 2-month lease gives me the capital I need. I'll live in the guest house, then I sell. Feels. Jennifer's expression melts into worry. And your clients? A nerve tightens in Arya's jaw. My professional ties to Dr. Reynolds are severed. I can hold my sessions online. Jennifer's voice drops, her digital image leaning closer. Feels. Are you sure you're safe? You're completely alone out there. Arya's eyes drift to the street outside. A ghost of it. It's charming. I might even have family nearby. Jennifer's face remains a portrait of doubt. Deep down, so is Arya. Feels. The phone shrieks at 7:47 in the morning, a violent cut into a fitful sleep. Her heart hammers against her ribs. Signora Ellis, you must come. I have found a tenant for you. For 2 months. Action obliterates reason. She throws on a dress. Feels. Feet sliding into sandals, keys in hand, her pulse keeping a frantic time against the ancient cobblestones. Yesterday, she was too broken to even see this place. Feels. Today, she is about to hand its keys to a complete stranger. The iron gate hangs open, a dark mouth, inviting her into a garden choked with weeds, the stone path almost entirely consumed. She hurries forward and her foot catches. Feels. Her world pitches sideways. A sickening drop, time stretching as the ground rushes toward her face. But before the impact, strong arms wrap around her waist, yanking her back from the edge. Her entire system shorts out. A sharp, stolen breath. Feels. Her hands fly out, bracing against a chest as solid as stone. A deep warmth radiates through his shirt. His heartbeat, a slow, steady drum beneath her palm. A stark counterpoint to the wild bird fluttering in her own throat. Feels. A current arcs from his skin to hers. heels. Her eyes trace a line down. Polished leather shoes, impossibly expensive. Tailored linen trousers, cinched by a gold buckle. Her gaze travels up. And then collision, his eyes a pale, unreadable green, lock onto hers. In that single suspended moment, heels. An entire conversation happens without a word. His gaze takes her in, her hazel eyes, the small tremor in her breath. He is perfectly groomed, from a trimmed beard to expertly styled hair. A slow, unfamiliar heat blooms inside her, heels. Her skin burns where his hands still hold her. At 5'5", she feels her own fragility against the effortless power that just saved her from the fall. He murmurs something in Italian, his voice a low, smooth vibration. No Italiano, she breathes. Feels the words barely a whisper. Heels. Heat rushes up her neck. Daughter of an Italian mother and a stranger in her own land, his expression shifts, a flicker of something that might be amusement. American. The word is perfect, without a trace of an accent. She pulls back, desperate for space, feels for air. His attention finally breaks from hers, travels to the house, and then snaps back to her with unnerving intensity. The house? Are you the owner? Her voice returns as she tries to smooth the wrinkles from her dress. Yes, I am. Just then, feels. Rico appears, breathless. Senora Ellis, I see you've met my client. The man's eyes drift from Rico back to Arya, his appraisal slow, deliberate, and cold. I hear you plan on staying in the guest house. Feels. If I am to rent this place, I will not have another person on the property. The sheer arrogance of it is a slap. Her spine straightens. She opens her mouth to argue, but movement from the house freezes the sound in her throat. Two men emerge. Feels. They are colossal, built like professional linebackers, their muscles straining the fabric of their suits. Her entire nervous system screams, her pulse pounds in her ears. One word forms in her mind, sharp and cold as ice. Mafia. Here? In this quiet place? Feels. She forces her gaze back to his. I have a policy. I don't rent to single men. A shadow of a smile touches his lips, as if her pathetic rules are a source of private entertainment. What makes you think I'm alone? He gestures to the two giants. Feels. They are my family. She forces a smile of her own. Feels. I think you know exactly what I meant. Rico steps between them, his voice a panicked hiss. Senora Ellis, Senor Beniano loves the house. 2 months. He is a very serious man. He takes a shaky breath, and his offer is 80,000 euros. Feels. The number hits her with the force of a punch. 80,000 for a 2-month stay. She looks at him then, truly looks, the cold, assessing eyes, the arrogant stance, the gold ring, the two monoliths behind him, the suit, obviously custom-made. Feels. He was the most magnetic man she had ever seen, and in that instant she hated him with every fiber of her being. Her voice is a shard of glass. No, the offer is refused. Sebastian Biano, who had been gazing at the sea, heels, turns his head with agonizing slowness. His eyes find hers. He raises one perfect eyebrow. So says his voice hissily soft. You are refusing. Rico cuts in, his voice tight. Heels. Senora Ellis, may I have a word? Rico pulls her away, his words a desperate tumbling rush. Listen, no normal family will pay 80,000 for 2 months in this place. I can get you a room somewhere. Or we could just sell to him now. Feels. He might go as high as 600,000. Arya's jaw is granite. No, I will not sell for that. She glances back at the three men, now in a quiet conference. Sebastian Biano's gaze is fixed on a small stone dock that juts into the water. His bodyguard, Heels. Vince is speaking. Boss, we can look at other places. Heels. This one needs a lot of work. Sebastian's eyes never leave the dock. No, Vince, this is the one. It's a place no one would think to look, a hidden cove. He pauses, his mind clearly somewhere else. And that stone dock, it could be a strategic asset. Heels. Besides, this is the Venti house. It has a history you can't possibly understand. His gaze then shifts, landing on Arya as she marches back toward them. A small, knowing smirk plays on his lips, and I like her. Arya stops in front of him, her chin high. Heels. I'm sorry, but your offer is not acceptable. Sebastian's expression is stone. 200,000 euros for 2 months, and I will handle the interior renovations myself. Arya feels the air leave her lungs. 200,000, Heels. What reason on earth could he have? Sebastian's gaze travels down the length of her body and back up, a mocking smile fixed on his face. Heels. I want this house, and I have a policy of my own. I always get what I want. Arya's throat feels tight. That kind of money. It could remake the property, pushing its value toward 3 million. But she holds his gaze, a last silent act of defiance. Heels. I'm staying in the guest house. Sebastian gives a slight incline of his head, a king granting a trivial request. Fine, it is far enough away. I will move in today. The agent's face breaks into a mask of pure, unadulterated relief. Excellent, Heels. Let's go to the office and sign the papers. There they sit next to each other, the space between them electric as they sign the lease. As Arya reads the contract, she sees his birthday. 37. From Sicily. She glances up, Heels, only to find him reading her own file with the exact same predatory curiosity. Heels. Her gaze shattered first. A clean, instant break is held. When she risked a glance back, his stare was a physical weight, unwavering. Above a smirk oozing pure self-assurance, one eyebrow was arched in silent victory. Arya's jaw hardened. Heels. Her eyes forced back to the paper. The sheer audacity of him was a low burn in her gut, proof of the immediate unsettling power he held. Later in the town, she walked to escape him. Scaria was no postcard. It had an authentic soul. Heels. A grit etched into its turquoise water and sun-bleached walls. At the town hall, she spoke the name Venti, her mother's name. The list was short. One family surfaced, an address written down for a journey she would have to make. That afternoon, Heels. Returning to the property, the scene was a violation. At least 7, maybe 8 men. Swarm of them, consuming both houses. The speed of the takeover sent a tremor of pure shock right through her. Heels. A man of his word, then. She conceded the thought. A bitter pill. An insufferably arrogant man, yes, but one who honored the letter of a deal. Inside the guest house, though, a different scene played out. Sebastian stood with just 2 of his men, Heels. Vince and Luigi. Cameras there, Vince, he directed. And on the stone dock, a mechanism to secure a boat. I want every single exterior angle covered. We prepare for any attack, however small. Luigi shifted, the unease a subtle flicker across his features. Heels. Boss, the Lamberts don't even know you exist. It will be weeks, a month, before they could ever find this place. Sebastian's voice turned to ice. I do not deal in chance, Luigi. Soon we will have the power to wipe them from Sicily. Until that day, Heels, we prepare for everything. Vince cleared his throat, a hesitant sound. Heels. And the girl, boss? She's a variable. You didn't know she was part of this, did you? A slow, predatory smile bloomed on Sebastian's face. She is nothing. The smirk returned, sharper this time. In fact, her presence could be useful. Good cover, Heels. It adds a certain domestic charm to the picture. He glanced away, his mind already spinning future moves on a board only he could see. I have plans for her. If she becomes a problem, she will be handled. The next day, Arya stood in the guest house, Heels. Suitcase in hand. The space was immaculate. A small kitchen, a bedroom door that opened to the sea, stone steps crawling down to a crumbling dock and a bathroom. 2 months here, she thought, letting her bag drop. The sound was hollow. Heels. Through the sea-facing door, she saw them. 2 men on the dock below, planting bright, garish flowers along the stone path. Arya was outside in a heartbeat. What is this? One of them looked up. Boss's orders. To make it beautiful. She could only stare, Heels. Bewildered, wondering who this performance was for. Arya tried to settle into the tiny house. Her life shrunk down to a suitcase and a laptop. That first night was a difficult one. The silence so absolute it felt like a living thing in the room with her. Heels. Through her window, the main house was a hulking shadow, pricked by a few dim lights. They were in there, Vince, Luigi, Sebastian. The thought was no comfort. It was a chilling question. Was their presence a shield, or the target itself? Heels. She was an ocean away from everything she knew, a tenant to her own history, renting to a man who was danger made flesh. Heels. A brilliant move? Hardly. Her mind was a tempest of regret as she finally drifted to sleep. Morning light was her only alarm. Arya walked to the water's edge, the sight of the Mediterranean a staggering pale blue eternity. Heels. Her mother grew up on this land before she married a man and fled to America. Arya tried to picture her as a girl, bare feet on these very stones. But her mother had built a wall around Scario, never breathing a word of this place, Heels, or of why she ran and never ever came back. Arya's eyes were drawn as if by a string up to the main house, and there he was. On a second-floor balcony stood Sebastian, shirtless, Heels. His chest slick with sweat as he unleashed a storm of controlled violence on a heavy bag, Heels. His body was a study in deadly function, all hard lines and coiled power, a machine built for one purpose, for violence. As if he could feel her eyes on him, Sebastian stopped. His head turned and his gaze found hers. He gave a slow, Heels, impossibly confident wave. A traitorous heat crawled up Arya's neck as she tore her eyes away. Completely not my type, she whispered to the waves, the lie a fragile against a truth she could feel in her bones. Stay away from him, Heels. A few days melted into a delicate routine. Therapy sessions online in the morning light, sunbathing in the afternoon haze, the occasional solitary walk into the village. She wasn't making friends. She didn't want any. The solitude was a kind of armor, Eels. One afternoon, mid-session, a shattering noise exploded from the dock, a violent percussion of banging and drilling. She cut the call short and went to find the source of the assault. Eels. Two men were installing a massive metal rig onto the old stone dock. Arya's heart began to hammer against her ribs. "Excuse me, the noise is insane. What is that? Are you docking a boat right here?" Eels. "Because I have zero desire to have a boat parked in front of my house." Luigi shot her a dismissive look, his face a mask of indifference. "Signorina, what the boss wants, we get. It's better for you if you don't ask questions." Hours later, Eels. A deep silence fell over the main house. The cruise trucks were gone. The entire property felt abandoned. She found herself drifting toward the gate, her mind a war of justifications. It was still her mother's house, her inheritance, Eels. What was the harm in just one look inside? She walked the path, her hand pushing open the heavy front door. Eels. Sebastian had gutted the house, but had put almost nothing back. The cavernous space felt empty, as if holding its breath for something to happen. At the top of the grand staircase, she saw it. A portrait. Her mother's family. Eels. The recognition was a punch to the gut, and in the center a young girl with dark hair and hazel eyes, her mother. Younger than in any picture Arya owned, maybe 15, surrounded by the faces of her family. He hadn't thrown it away. Eels. Arya took a few steps up the staircase, needing a closer look. That's when she heard it, footsteps. A cold dread plunged through her veins. She spun. At the top of the landing stood Sebastian, completely nude, Eels, water from his hair carving slow rivers down his neck. Eels. In the muted light, his skin looked like sculpture, every muscle defined as if carved from stone. Her eyes were pulled down, following a single drop of water as it traced a line down his abdomen before she could wrench her gaze away, heat flooding her face. The air vanished from her lungs. She was frozen, by the sight, by the silence. Eels. "Why are you in my house?" The voice was a shard of ice. Arya kept her back to him, a silent statue. "This is my house." The floorboards groaned behind her, a prelude to his touch. His hand closed on her wrist, not with violence, but with an undeniable, Eels, absolute finality. "So long as I am paying for it," he said, "it is mine." The words were a brand of humiliation on her cheeks, her body locked, rigid, as she fought against a grip as unyielding as stone. "Let go of me." Sebastian's voice dropped. Eels, a murmur that coiled in the air between them. "If you wander into my home uninvited," he said, "you will make me coffee. We are, after all, neighbors. We may as well become acquainted." "No," she breathed, "we don't." But his hold was iron. Eels. He simply raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge that twisted a knot of cold fear deep in her stomach. This man was a complete unknown. Eels. There was no frame of reference for what he might do. And then he let her go. Arya didn't hesitate. She fled. Down the stairs, through the door, a frantic escape back to the guest house. "What were you thinking walking in there?" The door slammed. Eels. Her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Hair tossed back, she scrambled to change her clothes. The instinct was clear, primal. She had to leave, find safety, find people. She grabbed her bag and wrenched the door open again, and froze. Eels. Sebastian was standing there. He wore a simple white linen shirt and camel trousers, his hair still damp, disheveled. He carried the scent of the ocean, a clean, sharp fragrance underpinned by something darker, more complex. Eels. "Were you leaving without making me that coffee?" He stepped inside before she could even breathe a reply. Eels. 3 involuntary steps backward. A primal fight-or-flight response seized her, hijacking her body long before her mind could catch up. Sebastian's eyes scanned the small room with a cool, analytical curiosity. Small but charming. He leaned closer. Eels. His gaze a physical touch, tracing the line of her neck down to her collarbone. "It smells pleasant in here, too." Arya's pulse throbbed, a frantic bird trapped in her throat. He was too close, his confidence too absolute. His presence, Eels, an overwhelming force. She hated his handsome face, hated that her own body was betraying her, responding even as every rational thought screamed danger. Sebastian moved to her kitchen counter and grimaced. "Wait, is this meant to be a coffee maker?" Eels. His horror seemed utterly genuine. "You Americans, how can you drink this filth? Don't tell me you don't own a mocha pot. My coffee is perfectly fine." Eels. He pulled out a phone, already dialing. "Luigi, bring me a mocha pot and fresh espresso. Immediately." His eyes never left hers. She rolled hers in defiance. "I was actually just leaving." Sebastian pocketed his phone, rolling up his sleeves. Eels. Before Arya could even process his intent, he had lifted the small, 2-person table from her kitchen and carried it out onto the stone dock. He followed with the chairs. Then he simply sat, leaning back, turning his face to the sun. Baffled, heels, she followed him out, stopping beside the table. When Sebastian looked at her again, the sun ignited his eyes. Green, a startling, impossible green, like sea glass held to the light. She could only stare, utterly captured. Heels. They were the most extraordinary eyes she had ever seen. Just then, Luigi materialized at the dock's edge, a mocha pot and two small cups in hand. He set them down without a word and vanished just as silently, his footsteps fading on the stone. Heels. Sebastian took the pot, pouring the dark, viscous liquid into each cup. The rich aroma filled the air, so much more potent than her machine. He slid one cup across the table to her. Arya sat, the chair scraping against the stone. Heels. She wrapped her hands around the small cup, a fragile shield absorbing its warmth. "So," he began, "why are you two staying here for 2 months?" Sebastian's smile was a slow, deliberate thing. Dark, perilous, vacation. The word hung in the air. Heels, feeling like a lie. Heels. Arya clutched the small cup like a lifeline. "Where are you from?" "Rome." Sebastian leaned back, the very picture of relaxation, yet his eyes were sharp, probing. He leaned forward again, his focus narrowing entirely on her. "Why are you so far from home?" Heels. "Bella?" Her mind flashed to the rental papers. Sicily. They had listed Sicily. Why was he lying about Rome? Her grip on the porcelain tightened. "This was my mother's house. She left it to me. I came to prepare it for sale." Heels. "I thought I'd stay for the summer." Sebastian raised his own cup, his gaze locking with hers over the rim. "So the painting upstairs, that is your family. The Ventus." Heels. Heat flared up her neck. "How do you know that?" He took a slow, methodical sip, his eyes fixed on some distant point across the water. "I made it my business to know who owned this house." With those words, a chill flooded her. He had investigated her. Heels. Her family. While she remained a complete mystery to herself. Sebastian finished his espresso, the cup meeting the saucer with a soft final click. He looked at her then, a deep and penetrating gaze, and for a split second, Heels. Something in the green of his eyes seemed to fracture. "That's coffee, Arya." Her name. The first time he'd said it, the vowels elongated, softened by his Italian accent. It stirred something she refused to acknowledge. Heels. A treacherous pulse began to beat beneath her skin. Heels. She hated that she liked the sound of it. Sebastian rose, his chair scraping back. A smile touched his lips, but it was a ghost. It never reached his hard, unreadable eyes. "Do not enter my house again, Bella." He walked a few paces away. Heels. And the voice trapped in her throat finally broke free. The name was a mistake, an instinct she couldn't take back. Sebastian. With that one word, the formal wall she'd built crumbled to dust. She had used his name. He paused. Heels. Turning his head just enough to look back, and his whole demeanor shifted. Surprise. And something else. Something that felt almost like warmth. The slight curve returned to his lips as she gestured vaguely toward the water. Heels. "I don't want a boat moored in front of my guest house." Sebastian's smile deepened into something private, something knowing. And then he was gone, leaving her with an empty cup and the scent of the sea. Later that afternoon, Heels. Arya found herself at the town hall. The clerk behind the counter glanced up, his expression blank. She leaned on the polished wood, aiming for a casual tone that felt like a costume. "I'm trying to find information on a family with the surname Venti." Heels. The clerk's eyes narrowed. "Why do you ask?" She held his gaze, refusing to back down. "Because I am a Venti." The man straightened instantly, disappearing into a back office. She watched him murmur to an older man who leaned forward, Heels, his glasses catching the light as he looked directly at Arya. Heels. He gave a sharp, definitive nod. The clerk returned, wrote, pushed out across the paper, an address. "There is only one family left." Arya took the paper, her hand trembling. Just one. All that remained of them. The house was small. Heels. Painted a pale, sun-bleached yellow, its shutters weathered by years of salt and sea. Arya knocked. The door opened to a young woman, maybe a few years older than her, with long, wavy hair and kind brown eyes. A woman of effortless beauty. Heels. Arya drew a shaky brow at her. "I think we might be distant cousins. I am Laura Venti's daughter." The woman's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. "Oh, Venti." Heels. "She was my great-uncle's daughter, the one who owned the stone house on the water." Without a word, the woman stepped forward, pulling Arya into a surprisingly warm embrace. "I'm Margarita." 15 minutes later, they sat in Margarita's garden, Heels, small glasses of limoncello catching the light between them. Margarita leaned in, her eyes shining. "I have an American cousin who is a psychologist. This is wonderful. I must show you everything. This weekend we will go out. You are here for 2 months." Heels. Yes, we will make them count. A genuine smile touched Arya's lips. Walking home, she let herself hope that this summer, guided by this vibrant woman, might just be good after all. Heels. But as she approached the guest house, she saw them. Instantly. Small black cameras affixed to the corners of the main house, aimed at the garden, at the dock, aimed at her. A suffocating pressure built in her chest. She pulled out her phone, heels, stared at the screen for a long, heavy moment, then dialed. "The man renting my house," she said. "Who is he exactly?" Rose's voice on the line was cautious. "A wealthy businessman. Why?" Her eyes snapped back to the cameras. "What kind of business?" Heels. "I do not know, Signora. He paid in cash. That is all I was told." Arya ended the call. She stepped back outside, her gaze shifting from the beautiful, innocent flowers to the cold, black lenses staring down at her from the main house. Heels. His image was burned into her thoughts, a portrait she couldn't escape. Who was question? A fragile whisper. The money, the constant surveillance. Why here? Down below, a boat sliced a path through the water, heels, its engine a deep hum approaching the dock. Sebastian stood at the bow, his eyes scanning the cliffs with an unnerving focus. "Tell my cousin Diego I've arrived," he ordered, his voice cutting clean through the motor's rumble. Vince, gripping the helm, heels, shot him a look. "You sure, boss? What if Diego is the leak?" A slow, cold smile crept across Sebastian's face. "I'm counting on it." Vince's knuckles turned white on the wheel. "And if the Lambertus show," heels. Sebastian's gaze never left the stone house on the shore. Heels. "Then we'll be ready for them." The sun bled out across the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of amber and rose. Arya had made a simple dinner, just pasta, and poured a glass of wine. She sat at the small table by the dock, heels, bare feet pressed to the cool stone. Before her the sea was a vast, silent emptiness, and for the first time a delicate peace began to settle over her. Then a low drone shattered the calm. A small boat, a dark shape against the dying light, heels, was heading straight for her dock, growing larger, closer with every passing second, and a white-hot fury ignited inside her chest. Heels. "I told him no boat at this dock." The vessel glided to a stop, bobbing on the gentle waves as Vince killed the engine. Sebastian stepped off first, his movements so fluid and confident you'd think he owned the very land and sea. And while he did, heels. For 2 more months, that didn't give him the right to ignore her. Arya shot to her feet, the chair shrieking against the stone. She marched to the edge of the dock, arms crossed tight against her chest. He approached with that same effortless stride, heels. White shirt unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up. He looked less like a tourist in a quiet town, and more like a predator stepping off a yacht in Monaco. Heels. "I said I didn't want a boat at my guest house." The words came out sharper than she'd meant. Sebastian didn't answer. He simply moved past her, walked to her small table, and picked up her glass of wine. He raised it, taking a long, slow sip, heels, his eyes locked on hers the entire time. He set the glass down, then picked up the bottle, turning it to read the label with a smug little smirk. "Someone needs to teach you about wine, Arya." His voice was light, almost teasing. "This is too sharp, heels. You need something with more body." Heat flooded her face. "Are you just going to ignore me?" Sebastian put the bottle down and just looked at her. His gaze was a slow, deliberate inventory of her rage. Heels. "I'll take you out on the boat sometime," he says, all casual charm. "There are some beautiful coves." He turns. He walks away, heading for the guest house as if the debate is over, as if she is over. Arya's nails dig into her palms. Heels. Sharp points of pain grounding her. But he's already gone, Vince a shadow at his back. She's left standing there, completely alone, blood pounding in her ears. Her hands tremble with the urge to break something. Anything. Heels. And then the word lands, narcissist. The clinical term fits with ice-cold clarity. A smug, insufferable monster who thinks the world is his personal chessboard. Meanwhile, inside the main house, heels, Sebastian is already climbing the stairs to the 2nd floor. Heels. He moves down the hall, last door on the right, the room he claimed from the very first day. The lock clicks behind him, sealing him inside his sanctuary. The space is bare, almost sterile, purely functional. A desk, a single chair. Heels. But the walls are a mosaic of digital light, 6 screens, each one broadcasting a live feed, the garden, the dock, the main gate, and of course the guest house. Sebastian pulls out the chair and sits, his eyes scanning every monitor. Heels. Most are still, lifeless landscapes. Then his gaze locks onto the screen in the bottom right corner. It's Arya. She's in the bathroom. The camera angle is high, partially hidden, but it shows him more than enough. Heels. She leans over the old-fashioned tub, twisting the taps. Steam begins to blur the lens. She straightens, reaches behind her, and in one fluid motion, her shirt is gone. Sebastian becomes perfectly still, a statue carved from shadow. Heels. She steps out of her pants with a slow, deliberate grace. Then she slips into the tub, sinking beneath the water until only her head is visible, her body relaxed against the porcelain. A slow heels. Chilling smile spreads across his lips as he whispers one single word. Interesting. He leans forward, trying to adjust the camera's angle, but it barely moves. It doesn't need to. He's already seen exactly what he wanted. His voice is a low murmur. Heels, for his ears only. You're getting under my skin, Arya Ellis Venti. His fingers tap on the desk, his eyes never leaving the screen. Heels. And you have no idea who your family truly is, do you? The next morning, Arya sits on her bed, laptop open, finishing a session with her third client of the day. As the call ends, she grabs her notebook. Patient, avoids eye contact when discussing control. Heels. Uses humor to deflect. Deep-seated fear of abandonment, hidden by a competent facade. Arya pauses, pen tapping against her lips. Her eyes drift to the window, out to the endless blue of the sea. But she's not thinking about her patient. Not at all. Heels. She's thinking about him, the way he stole her wine glass, the way he looked at her, like he could read every thought before she had it. Heels. The way he just turned his back and walked away, dismissing her like she was nothing more than air. The act didn't just sting. No, it was a deliberate exercise in erasure. She flips to a clean page in her notebook. Her hand seems to move on its own, Heels, scrawling his name at the top. And beneath it, a cold, clinical takedown begins. Asserts total control of his physical space, invades personal proximity to dominate conflict, dodges all verbal vulnerability. Heels. She stares at her own words. This isn't professional. A sudden knock at the door shatters her focus. Arya snaps the notebook shut, hiding the page, and gets up. It's Margarita, Heels, holding a tin of biscotti with a smile so genuinely warm it feels like a shock. A surprise, she says. I thought you might like some company. Heels. But before Arya can even answer, the door to the main house creaks open. Sebastian emerges, flanked by Vince and Luigi. He's dressed in dark jeans and a black shirt that fits him like a second skin. They start walking past the guest house, Heels, heading for the gate. Margarita turns and her breath catches. Oh my God, who is that? A cold, sick feeling washes over Arya. My tenant Sebastian. It's like the wind carried his name right to him. He stops. He turns. Heels. And he begins walking toward them with that same liquid, predatory grace. He starts speaking in Italian, his voice warm, his smile 100 times more genuine than any she's ever seen from him. Margarita answers in a flustered rush, Heels, nervously tucking her hair behind her ear. Sebastian says something else, and Margarita's laugh just erupts, bright and totally unrestrained. Heels. And Arya just stands there, arms crossed, a spectator at a performance she doesn't understand, but whose meaning is perfectly, painfully clear. It's in the way Margarita leans toward him, like a flower turning to the sun. Heels. The way Sebastian's eyes never leave her face, the effortless charm of his smile. Without thinking, Arya's hand drifts to the back of her neck, her fingers tangling in her hair. She catches herself, pulling her hand down sharply, but it's too late. Heels. The damage is done, heat ugly knot of tension coils in her shoulders. Is he flirting with her? Why is this version of him so different, so open? A strange pressure builds behind her eyes. Am I jealous? No. The thought is ridiculous. Heels. Why would I ever be jealous? For just a fraction of a second, Sebastian's eyes break from Margarita's, and they land right on Arya. Heels. His gaze follows the path her hand had taken. It lingers on her defensive posture, the subtle way she's leaning away. And for one terrifying instant, his whole expression changes. It's not anger. It's a mix of pure amusement and a quiet, Heels, razor-sharp satisfaction. He knew. He absolutely knew. He turns back to Margarita, switching to perfect English. We should do this again sometime. Margarita is practically glowing. I'd love that. Sebastian gives one last nod and leaves. Heels, his men falling in step behind him. Arya watches him go, a raw static of anxiety humming under her skin. Margarita turns back, still beaming. He is magnificent, she whispers. You never told me he was that gorgeous. Arya forces a smile. Heels. I guess I hadn't noticed. 20 minutes later, they sit by the water, sipping small glasses of limoncello in the sun. Heels. Margarita takes a sip. Her glass clink fades into something serious. I came to this house once when I was a girl. Arya looks over at her. You did? Margarita nods slowly. It frightened us. Heels. My father always said my great-uncle, Mattia Venti, was a very dangerous man. She pauses, watching Arya's face, searching for a reaction. Arya just blinks. Oh, I don't really know anything about the family. Margarita watches her, heals, a curious line forming between her brows. How can you not know your own mother's family? Did she never speak of them? Arya can only shake her head. Not once. We never visited. Margarita's expression softens into pity. Heals. The story I heard is that your mother fell in love with an American and just vanished. My great-uncle Mattia had arranged for her to marry into a powerful Sicilian family. She refused. Heals. And then Margarita's voice drops to a whisper. She was gone. You see, Mattia had connections, back in Sicily, the kind of connections you do not defy. My own father was terrified of him. Arya feels the air being squeezed from her lungs. Feels. So what happened to them? My mother's family? Margarita's expression becomes guarded. Listen, I don't have the whole story. Nobody does. It's the one thing nobody ever talks about. You bring it up, and the entire room goes silent. Arya nods. Feels. 1,000 questions buzzing in her mind. What about your parents? Where are they? And just like that, Margarita's smile completely dissolves. A car accident. I was only a child. My brother raised me. He lives in Rome now. Heals. He said the Venti name was a curse and he wanted out, a completely new life. She stares out at the water. But me, I love this place. Heals. For 4 years, she built a life of careful, quiet solitude. She pulls her focus back to Arya. All I need is a charming Italian man and I'm set. That familiar glint returns to Margarita's eyes. Your tenant, he's a vision. Are you interested? Feels. Arya's denial is a reflex. Not a chance. He's the antithesis of my type, Margarita. He's the very thing you run from, not toward. But Margarita just lets out a low, knowing laugh. Oh, Arya, men like that, they're pure passion. Feels. A breed we rarely see anymore. She leans in closer. If you don't claim him, another woman will. It's only a matter of time. Arya forces a smile, but the image of Margarita and Sebastian together stirs a potent, ugly feeling deep in her gut. Later, Feels, another client fills her screen. A woman in her 40s, makeup a perfect mask, a huge diamond still on her ring finger. Feels. And here we see the clinician at work. Arya, the therapist, absorbing her patient's story of a 6-month affair. The husband is a kind man, but completely invisible in his own passivity. The lover, a masterclass in psychological control. Feels. The patient is trapped between two kinds of broken men. When the session ends, Arya starts her notes, but the diagnosis she writes isn't just for her patient. Power has become a substitute for desire. In that single moment, Feels, she isn't analyzing someone else's life. She is staring straight into the cold, unflinching mirror of her own, and she can't look away. Feels. The clinical assessment concludes. Objective, detached, a perfect execution of professional protocol. With a sharp, definitive line drawn beneath the word power, she turns to a clean page, and his name appears in ink, Sebastian. For days, Feels, this book has been his secret chamber. He uses touch as a weapon. He denies all spoken vulnerability. To this, she adds an entry, affect cold. Boundaries abruptly violated, but here the script flips, Feels. Instead of red flags, she writes that the encounter feels like life. The question bleeds onto the page. Why does his control feel like a sanctuary and not a cage? Here, of course, lies the central sickness. Feels. This is a violation of her most sacred code. She has one cardinal rule: never let a case become personal. Yet the reflection of this one is scorching the back of her eyes. The parallel isn't just a whisper, it's a screaming accusation. Her response? Feels. The journal snaps shut, as if it were laced with poison. She begins a frantic organization of her desk, a desperate play to force order on a mind spiraling into chaos. Her breathing is controlled, her posture flawless. Feels. It's a masterful performance of denial. She knows she is only burying the body, hoping the problem will suffocate if she refuses to give it air. A truly hopeless prayer. Feels. From her window, she can see his house, a stone fortress she actively tries to ignore. The night air hangs heavy, hot and suffocating. Otta sits on a wooden dock, a simple black swimsuit clinging to her skin, her feet hovering over the black, still water. Feels. For 20 minutes, she has tried to cast out the ghost of her life in Detroit. Her mind wanders to her mother, another woman frozen in ice, distant, controlled, allowing no one past her walls. Arya remembers watching other girls with their mothers. Feels their easy warmth carving a hollow ache inside her. When her father died at 13, there were no tears, only a chilling, uninterrupted silence. Feels. Thinking of her father now brings only a deep, aching pity. A man who spent his whole life chasing a woman who never wanted to be caught. A passive man, and the echo of it is deafening. It's no surprise, then, feels, that Arya's only two real relationships shattered on that very same fault line. Her own refusal to let anyone in. The realization hits her with the force of a physical blow. Maybe I am my mother's daughter. Maybe she is broken at the source. The air thins, feels impossible to breathe. And so she does the only thing that makes any sense. She slips off the dock and into the shocking, brutal cold of the lake. Feels. She lets herself sink, a slow, deliberate surrender to the welcoming dark. In that abyss, there is only quiet. The relentless screaming in her own mind finally stops. The crushing weight on her soul just vanishes. Feels. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, there is peace, a profound silence. The world above is a distant universe, a place she has no desire to see again. Was this the real reason she came here? An escape not from the world, but from herself, feels. She spends her life dissecting the minds of others, yet she is completely powerless to heal her own. Her lungs begin to burn. The world softens at the edges, and then a violent crack. Something shatters the surface of the water right above her. Feels. Her eyes fly open. Feels. A shadow plummets toward her through the dark water. Hands lock around her waist, yanking her hard against a solid body, dragging her toward the surface. A flash of piercing green eyes, and then they break into the night. Arya convulses, choking, feels, fighting for the air her body craves. It's Sebastian. His arms are a steel cage around her, his face inches from her own, his eyes burning into her. What in God's name were you doing? The question is raw, laced with a terrifying fury. Feels. Were you trying to kill yourself? Arya shoves at his chest. What? No, I needed the quiet. I wasn't trying to die. Feels. Seriously, where did this man even come from? She pushes off, swimming for the dock, but her limbs feel like lead. She doesn't have the strength to pull herself out. Then his hands are on her hips again. Feels. Sebastian lifts her onto the pier as if she weighs nothing at all. But he stays in the water, planting his hands on the wood on either side of her thighs. He has her pinned, his body squarely between her legs, a flagrant, undeniable display of power. Feels. She cannot meet his gaze. Swimming at night is a bad idea, Arya, he murmurs. She stares at the horizon. Are you watching me? How did you know I was here? A corner of his mouth lifts. Feels. I heard a splash. I assumed someone fell in. She finally forces her eyes to his. Water streams down his face, his dark shirt clinging to the hard lines of his chest. Or maybe you saw it on one of your many cameras. Why is this whole place being watched? Feels. He just shrugs, completely unbothered by their proximity. I have things. People try to take them. It's a problem here. His eyes lock with hers. You, of all people, should be more careful. Arya's smile is pure acid. Feels. I have nothing anyone would want to take. Sebastian's hand moves, his fingers brushing her thigh as he plucks something from her skin. A single strand of seaweed. Feels. His thumb grazes her leg, a fraction of a second too long, then he pulls away. You are here, he whispers, his voice dangerously low. Someone could just decide they want you, and that's it. The breaking point. Heat floods her face. Feels. She pulls her legs back and storms toward the guest house, not daring to look back. But she feels it, his eyes on her back, her legs, her hips. The feeling of being watched, of being claimed, doesn't stop. It's as if he's already staked his territory. Inside, feels. She reaches for a towel. The door creaks open. She knows exactly who it is. Please leave, she says, her voice a fortress of calm. I thought we had an agreement about personal space. Feels. He doesn't answer. She hears only the soft sound of his bare feet on the floor getting closer. Then his hand shoots out, grabs the towel, and in one swift, violent motion rips it from her hands. Arya stumbles back, hitting the wall. Feels. Absolutely stunned by the sheer audacity. He closes the space in a heartbeat. He braces his arms on the wall, caging her. He is impossibly close, his damp clothes seeming to melt into the muscle underneath. Her swimsuit feels like tissue paper. Feels. His voice is a low, controlled growl. Now we're even. Feels. You watched me when I was vulnerable, didn't you? A flush of heat crawls up her neck. She is trapped, soaked, half-naked, and this man is looking at her as if he already owns her. Don't you ever do that again. His eyes hold her prisoner. Feels. You could have passed out in there. And then his lips are on her neck, the barest whisper of a touch. His breath is hot against her skin. I can feel everything you try so hard to hide. Her stomach twists into a painful knot. Her knees feel weak. Feels. But she fights it, shoving his chest with everything she has. He actually moves, stepping back, but his burning gaze never leaves her face. Not for a second. Feels. She snatched the towel back, pulling it tight around herself, her voice turning to absolute ice. Tell me, Sebastian, what exactly is your game here? A smirk touched his lips as he gave a slight shrug. A test. I was actually looking for Margarita. Heels. The name lands like a punch to the gut. Her jaw clenches, a cold rage seeping into her words. Well, she is very clearly not here. I can give you her number if you're that desperate. In a flash, Sebastian erased the distance between them. Heels, his voice dropping to a raw whisper. She isn't the one I'm interested in. Before the words could even register, his arms were under her knees, lifting her clean off the floor in one possessive final motion. Heels. Her back slammed against the wall, her legs instinctively locking around his waist. Then his mouth was on hers. This wasn't a kiss. This was invasion. A demand for every secret part of her she kept locked away. For a split second, she was frozen. Heels. Then her body betrayed her completely, kissing him back with a raw, desperate hunger that terrified her. A wild, broken sound escaped her throat, and she hated herself for it. His lips left hers, moving to her jaw, then blazing a trail down her neck. Heels. He stopped in the hollow of her throat, breathing against her skin. You're driving me insane. She felt the fire ignite between them, the raw power in his grip, and the way his breathing began to match her own ragged gasps. Heels. Her mind was a single, piercing scream of no, but her body had already waved the white flag. She could barely choke the word past the fog that had stolen her senses. Stop. He didn't move, the brutal assault on her senses continuing as if he hadn't heard. Heels. His mouth was still fused to her skin. Stop. I mean it. He finally lifted his head, his eyes drilling into hers, his face still only inches away. She was still in his arms, still pinned, still fighting for breath. Your body, Arya, Heels, is telling a very different story. A wave of pure rage cut through the haze, shattering everything. She slammed her palm flat against his chest and pushed. Put me down now. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered her to the floor. His intense gaze never broke. Heels. The second her feet hit the ground, that ghost of a smile was back on his face. Her hand moved on pure instinct, an impulse older than thought. The sharp crack of the slap echoed through the room. That's for touching me without permission. Heels. Sebastian just raised his hands, taking 2 steps back. But the smile, it never left his face. If anything, it got wider. Arya fixed the swimsuit strap on her shoulder, her fingers still shaking. Stay away from me. Don't come in my house again. Heels. I am not interested in you. He just tilted his head, watching her. Are you completely sure about that? She stalked toward him, her anger boiling over. You are arrogant. Entitled, you think you can have anything you want. And when I call you a narcissist, Heels, it's not an insult. It's a professional diagnosis. Heels. I do not get involved with men like you. At that, Sebastian actually laughed, a real deep laugh. A psychologist? His voice dropped low again. Are you sure you're talking about me? Maybe you're the one who needs to look in a mirror. Heels. He turned and walked to the door, completely unhurried. He paused in the frame, a dark silhouette against the night. Lock your door. And he was gone. Arya stood in the ringing silence, her heart hammering, struggling to breathe. Heels. She whispered it to the empty space. I lost control. Just for a moment, it couldn't happen again. Her mind raced. How did he do that to her? She was stronger, smarter, more. Her thoughts crashed to a halt as the truth, cold and deep as the ocean, Heels, finally washed over her. Heels. One part of her mind recoiled in horror, but another part, the part that scared her, knew exactly what Sebastian meant. Midnight. Sebastian stood under the shower until the water turned to ice. Heels. He tied a robe around his waist and walked down the main staircase. Luigi was in the kitchen. Vince, in the living room. Neither man looked up as he took a second flight of stairs, this one leading down. The old steps groaned under his weight. Heels. At the bottom, a long, narrow hall stretched out before him. He walked its length without hesitation, stopping at the far wall. To his right was a small wooden box. He flipped it open. Inside, a keypad glowed with a faint green light. Heels. Sebastian typed in the code. Heels. The wall groaned, shaking dust as it split down the middle and swung inward. The room behind it smelled of trapped time. Can vases were stacked everywhere. Sebastian moved past them, stopping at the largest painting. He seized the frame and pulled it aside. Heels. Behind it, a safe. He pressed his thumb to the scanner. A soft click broke the silence. Inside, weapons were laid out on black velvet, held in perfect brackets. 50 of them, maybe more. He chose a Beretta, checked the clip, and slid it into his pocket. Heels. His eyes then moved to the wall next to the safe. A huge family tree was painted on old parchment. At the very top, the name Venti. His finger traced a line down. Mattia Venti, deceased. Heels. Below that, Ora Venti, deceased. And then another name, Arya Ellis Venti, alive. A slow, predatory smile spread across his lips as a profound sense of rightness settled over him. He turned and walked back the way he came. feels the cool weight of the pistol a comforting presence in his pocket. At the top of the stairs he paused, his hand on the ancient stone. His gaze was pulled back to the hidden room, to the name written in that elegant script. So, feels, what am I going to do with you, Arya Venti? He murmured into the shadows. The next evening, Margarita managed to pull Arya from her self-imposed prison. Arya wore a white bikini top under a long skirt, her hair in a loose braid. Feels. The sun had deepened her tan, making her hazel eyes glow. The last light of day set the copper strands in her hair on fire. Feels. She looked back at the stone house, her eyes scanning the dark, still windows. No Sebastian. A huge wave of relief washed over her, a feeling she refused to examine too closely. They reached Scario Square just as it was coming alive. Feels. The flagstones were still warm from the day's sun. Strings of yellow lights hung between the buildings, casting a soft glow on the lemon trees. The air was a mix of salt, strong coffee, fried dough, and limoncello. And then the music started. Feels. A mandolin erupted, fast and bright, quickly joined by the deep chords of an accordion. A tambourine set a joyful, relentless beat, and a violin's melody soared over it all, weaving everything together into one living sound. Feels. In Scario, music was never just background noise. It was the town's very heartbeat. The women took the dance floor first, their colorful skirts and flat shoes making a beat against the stone. An old couple joined in. Feels. The man leaning his cane against a wall to take his wife's hand, earning a round of applause. Margarita grabbed Arya's wrist. In Italy, you don't watch, you dance. Arya pulled back. The crush of people, the noise, feels the motion. It was a full-on assault to her carefully controlled world. She started to argue, but the music got louder, faster. Margarita just laughed and gave her a little push. And then, somehow, Arya was laughing too, a wild sound she barely recognized. Feels. She stumbled awkwardly, before her body just gave in to the rhythm. Her braid came undone, her face was flushed. She was completely out of breath, but a smile was plastered on her face. Feels. She was in the middle of a spin, her skirt a white blur when she saw him, Sebastian, standing at the edge of the square as if he'd been born from the evening shadows. He wore a dark linen shirt, unbuttoned, showing the line of his throat. Feels. His green eyes soaked up the yellow light, looking sharp, intense, and on his face was a look of faint, controlled amusement that sucked all the air from her lungs. Her rhythm vanished, her feet turned to stone. For the first time in what felt like forever, Feels. Her mind had been perfectly, beautifully silent. Now there was only him. Around him, the crowd subtly shifted. Conversations died down. A woman's laugh was cut short. One person stepped back, then another, a path clearing for him as if by some silent Feels' primal instinct. Feels. The melody lingered, but the soul of the night had irrevocably changed. He began to cross the square. What radiated from the crowd was not fear, it was something deeper, deference. A space cleared for him, Feels. An invisible current parting around a stone too great to be moved. Near him, a table of men drinking espresso fell into a sudden deep silence. One man uttered a single word. Another placed a warning hand on his friend's arm. Feels. But Sebastian's eyes, they never left hers. An old man by the fountain drew himself to his full height, offering a sharp singular nod of acknowledgement. Sebastian returned it. A silent treaty of power, a greeting between kings. Feels. A recognition of a status earned by deeds best left in darkness. He moved forward, unhurried, as if he owned every cobblestone beneath his feet. Feels. Arya wrenches her gaze away, desperate to find the music's rhythm again, to match Margarita's wild freedom, but the spell is broken. The air itself feels thick now, heavy with an unspoken threat. Her heart hammers against her ribs. Feels. She can feel his stare on her, a physical weight pinning her to the spot. Without looking, she knows the exact second She's in the middle of a spin when their eyes finally collide across the crowded space. Her skirt flares, Feels. A braid whips across her shoulder. Her head is thrown back in laughter with Margarita. She has absolutely no idea what she is doing to him. She is simply, horribly alive. For him, the world falls away. The music, the voices, the footsteps, all gone. Feels. She turns once more, the dying sun catching in her hair like it's being set alight, and Sebastian forgets how to breathe. This is not the woman who stood on his doorstep, trembling with rage in the rain. Feels. And she is nothing like the analyst who cuts him open with that quiet, clinical stare. This Arya, she is raw, unrestrained, a beautiful, untamed creature awakening something ancient and predatory in his very core. He starts to move again, Feels, carving a direct path to the edge of the dancers. His presence is a ripple in the field. A wife looks up. A child instinctively swerves from his path. Margarita spots him first, her eyes widen, and then a slow, knowing smile spreads across her face. Feels. She whispers something to a friend, then extends a hand to Sebastian. Without a single hesitation, he steps into the dance, commanding the space as if by birthright. Arya's head snaps toward them, an involuntary reflex. She has never, feels, ever seen a man move like this. Feels. He moves with a liquid deadliness, as if the music is born from inside his own bones. His hand claims Margarita's waist with an expert's touch, guiding her into a flawless spin. Feels, his entire focus burning into her with an intensity that builds an unbearable pressure inside Arya's chest. Her hands clench, knuckles turning white. A voice screams inside her head to look away, to find anything else to focus on. Do not watch. Do not. Feels. But her eyes are traitors. They stay locked on the scene as Margarita laughs, head thrown back, while Sebastian dips her low, so low to the ground. His arm supports her like she weighs nothing, his other hand splayed possessively on her back. Feels. Whistles and cheers erupt from the crowd. When he pulls her up, she is flushed, breathless, leaning in, far too close, to whisper something directly into his ear. Feels. Sebastian's face is a study in stoicism, but a slight tilt of his head concedes the moment, then the kiss. Margarita's lips on his, a gesture built for an audience, slow and deliberate. Her hand rests on his chest, feels, a fraction of a second too long. A silent declaration of ownership before she pulls away, her eyes a flagrant dare. A white-hot spike of ice drives through Arya's ribs, stealing her breath. She rips her gaze away, feels, forcing a sudden interest in a clutch of lemon trees as air catches in tiny, shallow gasps. A frantic prayer begins its loop inside her skull. This means nothing. I feel nothing. He is hers. Margarita steps back, fanning herself with theatrical grace. Feels. And just like that, the crowd shifts, forming a perfect circle. In the center, trapped in the unforgiving light, stand Arya and Sebastian. The music crashes back to life, but now it's faster. The melody, a blade. Feels. He crosses the distance in 2 lethal strides, stopping just before her, his hand offered palm up. It's no invitation. It's a summons, a challenge. Dance with me, I dare you. Arya's heart becomes a frantic drum against her bones. Feels, a prisoner battering the cage. She could say no. Every sane instinct screams at her to turn and walk. Instead, her hand finds his. His fingers lock around hers, a touch that feels both gentle and entirely absolute. This isn't a waltz. It's a battle. Feels. A clash of sharp turns and aggressive angles, their bodies caught in a deadly orbit around one another. He leads with brutal precision, his hand a firm anchor in the storm of their movement. As the momentum spins her off balance, Feels, a surprised laugh bursts from her throat. For an instant, the barest hint of a smile touches his lips. The music screams toward its peak. Feels. In that second, Arya stops thinking. She surrenders, she just moves. Her skirt flares out like a corolla as she spins, hair whipping across her face, a dark, wild storm. She almost stumbles, but Sebastian's hand shoots out, closing around her wrist. Feels. For one searing moment, his thumb presses into the frantic beat of her pulse before he lets go. It was a calculated touch, its message unmistakable. Their eyes lock, and in that stretched-out second, the world around them seems to melt and slow. Feels. Her chest heaves with the effort. So does his. A screeching violin yanks them back into the rhythm. Sebastian's palm settles on the small of her back, the pressure a brand through the thin cotton of her blouse. She pivots back, and they are inches apart. Feels. They don't touch, but she can feel the solid wall of his chest like a powerful magnetic force. Feels. The heat rolling off him feels like a physical thing, a testament to the way the air itself seems to thin and crackle whenever he is close, and then silence. The music is cut clean. Applause floods the sudden void. But they remain frozen, Feels, suspended in that charged space between the last note and the world rushing back in. Arya's heart pounds a wild, desperate rhythm. She looks up at him, fighting for breath, for thought, for any one of the reasons this is a catastrophic mistake. Feels. He is looking back, not at the crowd, not anywhere else, only at her. And for the first time in front of everyone, they just stand there, truly seeing one another, as if the entire town square had dissolved into nothing. His breath catches, a perfect, Feels, terrible echo of her own. A dark lock of hair falls over his brow. Feels. An overwhelming urge surges through her to reach up, to smooth that lock of hair back into place. Her fingers twitch before she kills the impulse. Pure cognitive dissonance. Alarms are screaming in her rational mind. This is a fatal path. Feels. You are losing yourself. Her thoughts are a tangled ruin. Just yesterday, she had struck this man. Yesterday, his mouth had been on hers, his hands lifting her like she weighed nothing, his voice a rough promise against her skin. And now? feels. She's laughing in his arms, playing a part in this pantomime of normalcy. A phantom heat lingers where his palm had been, and the truth hits her like a physical blow. You are forfeiting your own soul, Arya. In one sharp movement, feels. She turns and flees to Margarita's table, collapsing into a chair and grabbing the limoncello before she's even steady. Feels. A knowing smile plays on Margarita's lips. I thought you disliked him, cousin. Pure, unfiltered mischief shines in her eyes. And yet, look at you, you're glowing. Arya scoffs, her voice a thin wire she struggles to keep taut. It was only a dance, feels. It would have been rude to refuse. He's just my tenant. But her eyes are traitors, darting away from her cousin's penetrating gaze. Across the plaza, Sebastian stands by the bar, a dark, immovable point in the swirling chaos. Someone hands him a drink, feels. He takes it without looking, his eyes already sweeping the crowd. Then they find hers, a direct line of force across the square. No smile, no nod. He just looks. She looks back. The air between them hums, stretched tight with everything unsaid. Feels. Arya feels that familiar kick in her pulse, a slow burn creeping up her neck. She is the first to look away, turning back to Margarita with forced intention. Margarita leans in, her voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. Darling, feels. If you're truly not interested, then you must give me your blessing to go after him. She glances toward the bar, biting her lip. I mean, just look at him. The width of his shoulders, those hands. She flutters a hand near her face, feels. I simply must find out what those hands feel like. A hot, violent roar of blood fills Arya's ears. She grabs the limoncello and downs it, the chemical burn a welcome distraction. If only Margarita knew that those hands had already been on her skin, feels. Just last night. If she had any idea of the pressure against a wall, or how his thumb had traced the panicked pulse in her neck during their dance, how his palm had burned through her dress like it wasn't even there, feels. Do whatever you want, Margarita. Arya stares anywhere but the bar, anywhere but him. I have no claim. The lie is a foul, bitter thing on her tongue. Arya pushes her chair back. Margarita gets up, slinging a purse over her shoulder. I can give you a ride, feels. Cousin, are you sure? Arya manufactures a smile. It's a 10-minute walk. I need the air. Margarita leans in, her lips warm on Arya's cheek. The simple affection is like a blade. She's only known her cousin for 2 weeks, feels. But Margarita has already found a place in her life that Arya has no idea how to defend, feels. It isn't the kindness that's the problem. It's that accepting it feels like trying to decipher a language she's never heard. All right, Bella. Margarita's smile is dazzling as her eyes drift past Arya, back toward the square. I'll see you soon, feels. Arya stays rooted to the spot, a spectator, as her cousin begins a slow, deliberate walk toward the bar where Sebastian stands, a dark shape against the light. Every sway of Margarita's hips is a question aimed right at him. Her hand slides up his arm, feels. He says something she can't hear. Margarita laughs, pressing herself into his space. Before the next frame of this slow-motion disaster can play out, Arya turns on her heel and walks away. She shuts the guest house door, feels, pressing her palms flat against the cool wood as if she could physically block out the world. The ocean whispers outside, but for the first time it brings no peace. The image just plays again and again, feels. And so Arya sees Sebastian dancing with a woman named Margarita, his hand resting with casual ownership on the small of her back, and a switch flips inside her. A full-blown primal jealousy ignites. Her heart hammers against her ribs. Feels. This can't be happening. She storms into the kitchen, yanks a cabinet open, and grabs the first bottle she sees, the same cheap red wine Sebastian had insulted. She attacks the cork with a brutal fury, as if the corkscrew itself were to blame. Feels. Get out of my head, you arrogant bastard, but it is far too late. He's already moved in. He is in the wine, in the ghost of warmth on her skin, in the searing brand of his touch. And then a memory cuts through. Her mother's voice, sharp as broken glass. Feels. You are just like me, cold, walled off. You let no one in because you have no idea how. So Arya pours a heavy measure of wine into a water glass and falls onto the sofa. She needs distraction. Now, she snatches a book. Something about the ego. Feels the words meaningless. Curled by the window, she stares out at the seamless black of the ocean and sky. A sip of wine, a single sentence. Another sip. Her eyelids feel like lead weights. The glass tips in her hand. And that's when she hears it. Feels. A soft scrape, the sound of metal on wood. Her eyes snap open. She puts the glass down, straining her ears. Nothing. Just the house settling, the breathing of the ocean. And her own mind supplies the only possible name, Sebastian. Feels. But the logic shatters against the image. Him with Margarita, pulling her close, his focus the same burning intensity she felt only yesterday. Bile rises in her throat. She stands, her gaze sweeping the single shadow-draped room. Kitchen, living area, heels. Bed, bath, all one space, all perfectly still. Then the sound again, from the back of the cottage, unmistakable. Arya slides the glass door open, its quiet track a whisper against the night. She steps onto the dock. A small boat is there, tied fast, heels. A hollowed-out shape on the dark water. She breathes out, slow, just paranoia, exhaustion. A jealousy so sharp it feels like a sickness. It's the only answer. She turns to go back inside, and the world simply stops. Heals. The crickets go silent. The town's distant hum is snuffed out. There is only the soft lap of water and the sound of her own blood in her ears. Behind her, the boat groans, one lonely sound in a world gone dead. Heals. It's then that the primal wiring in her brain begins to scream an ancient instinct, a lizard-brained certainty of absolute danger. She takes one step, a hand closes over her throat. Her body convulses with a wild animal force. Her feet lift from the wood, heels. Her nails tear at the wrist, crushing her airway, but the grip is stone. No air, no scream, nothing. Through the slits of his mask, she sees only eyes, vacant, black holes in a human face. Then the strike, heels. A flash of white-hot lightning detonates behind her eyes, erasing everything. Pain explodes in her jaw. Her mind shrieks commands, fight, move, but the connection is severed. The pressure on her throat becomes absolute. Her lungs are on fire, heels. The world shrinks, a tunnel of encroaching darkness. Let her go, the voice comes from behind him, low and unnervingly calm, cutting through the chaos. It feels like it freezes the air itself. The man doesn't obey. He pivots, wrenching Arya with him, heels. A shield of flesh and bone. Through the swimming blur, she sees him, Sebastian. His gun is raised, his face a sculpture of pure frozen rage. And then the world finally dissolves into black. Consciousness returns in broken pieces, feels the feeling of strong arms carrying her as if she were made of air, feels. Her throat is a sun of throbbing agony. Her jaw feels lit from within by fire. She hears Sebastian's voice snapping orders in Italian. Vince's voice answers from somewhere close. The echo of footsteps on a stairwell, and she's gone again, heels, plunged back into the dark. When she surfaces, pain is the first thing that greets her. A deep, crushing ache in her throat. Her lip feels split, swollen. She tries to lift a hand to trace the damage, but another hand catches her wrist, heels, the touch impossibly gentle. Don't! Sebastian's voice is a low murmur right beside her. She forces her eyes to open. He's on the bed, inches away, a cotton ball in his hand. She tries to speak. Only a raw, wounded rasp escapes. Don't talk. Heels. He puts the cotton down, his thumb stroking the unbruised side of her face. Your lip is split. This will sting. Heels. The ointment on her broken skin is a jolt of liquid fire. She flinches, a violent, involuntary recoil. Sebastian's face hardens. I know. I am sorry. The words are soft, but his tone is fractured, like fine china that has been cracked. Heels. Arya lets her eyes fall shut. This was more than a hit. The damage was deeper, a violation of a self she never knew was so breakable. No one had ever struck her, not once. She had never felt a shock like this, a tremor that settled deep in her bones, heels, making thought impossible. He presses an ice pack to her neck. His other hand cradles the back of her head, holding her steady against the brutal cold. You took a very bad hit, Arya, heels. I only regret that I was not here sooner. He picks up a pill and a glass of water from the nightstand, bringing them to her lips. You need to take this. She tries to refuse, a slight shake of her head, but he leans closer. His gaze locks onto hers, heels, an intensity that makes it impossible to look away. For the pain, trust me. That one word, it hangs in the air between them, heavy with everything they haven't said. Trust. Before she can fight it, he gently pushes the pill past her lips, heels. Her first instinct is to spit it out, to shove him away, but every muscle she has screams in protest, and so she swallows. Sebastian stands, his fingers already working the buttons of his shirt. Through heavy lids, she watches him shrug it off, heels, revealing a torso sculpted from marble. Heels, heels. Arya wakes to an overwhelming warmth, a heavy, blanketing presence she cannot escape. Sebastian's arm is a solid bar across her waist, his hand resting on her hip with an air of pure possession. His chest rises and falls against her back, heels, his breath a warm current against her neck, and then the memory of violence. The hands, the choking, the darkness. Her mind snaps to high alert. With agonizing slowness, she lifts his arm, placing it beside her. He doesn't stir, heels. She pushes herself up, the room tilting, and takes it all in. This is not her room. Through massive windows, the ocean stretches out to forever. Far below, her little guest house looks like a fragile toy. Her eyes fall to her own body. Feels. The white bikini she wore last night is folded at the foot of the bed, a gesture of unsettling care. She is only in her underwear. A flush of heat crawls up her neck as she snatches the clothes, her fingers feeling clumsy and foreign. Feels. Every swallow is a fresh spike of pain in her throat. Her jaw is one constant radiating ache. She has to see the mirror is across the room. When she finally stands before it, the breath is stolen from her lungs. Her bottom lip is swollen. Feels. A tiny cut at the corner, but her neck, dark violet fingerprints are branded into her skin. Nearly black at the center, they bleed out into a bruised, sickly purple. The evidence is irrefutable. A crushing weight settles in her chest. Feels. Her vision begins to narrow. Feels. This wasn't a dream. Someone tried to kill me suddenly. Hands are on her arms. Arya, Sebastian's voice, a solid anchor in the swirling chaos. Come here, look at me. She tries to pull away, but he just turns her, forcing her to face him. He's shirtless, Feels, wearing low sweatpants, his green eyes burning with an unnerving focus. Breathe, he orders. In your nose, out your mouth. She does it, unthinking once, twice. The panic starts to ebb as his thumbs trace slow, calming circles on her skin. Feels. You were attacked, he says, his tone clinical as if reading a file. But you're safe now. Her voice is a broken whisper. That man? Who was he? Sebastian's face becomes a mask of stone, completely unreadable. When he says his voice is cold, absolute. Feels. It has been handled. Feels. The words just hung there in the air, cold and empty. Arya ripped her arm from his grasp, putting space between them that he didn't try to close. A deep sickness coiled in her gut. That dead calm delivery, it was all wrong. Feels. A jarring note against the violence she'd just survived. What does that mean? It has been handled. What is that, Sebastian? He just watched her, his expression of a blank wall. It means he is no longer a problem. It means you are safe. Her eyes widened. Feels. The awful truth filling in the stark, empty spaces he left in his statement. Did you call the police? Is he arrested? Is he? Sebastian didn't even blink. I told you, he repeated. We handled it. She backed away another step. Feels, the bruises on her neck seeming to pulse with her own terror. Feels. Who was he? Why did he come after me? What is going on? His voice was a pillar of infuriating calm. That isn't what's important right now. He shifted his weight, a tiny movement that screamed of coiled tension. What's important is that you are safe, Feels, and that you are not going anywhere. Her nails bit into her own palms. You don't have the right to decide that. You can't just lock me up and give orders. Who do you think you are? And then he started walking toward her, each step slow, deliberate. Feels. You know, her head started to shake, a frantic, desperate denial as she retreated until her back hit the cold wall. No, I don't. I don't know anything. The desperation was tearing her voice to shreds. Feels. How did you even get to my house so fast last night? I left you in the square with Margarita. You should have been. For just a split second, his expression changed, something like relief flickering there. His voice softened. I saw you walk home alone. Feels. I followed you. I was worried. A wave of relief crashed over her, so powerful it was dizzying. He hadn't been with Margarita. He'd been watching over her, but the confusion rushed back in. That doesn't explain anything. Why did you have a gun? Feels. I'm calling the police. She made a frantic lunge for the door. Sebastian was faster. His hand snapped around her wrist, spinning her back with a terrifying, effortless power. You are staying here. She fought against his grip. Let go of me. Feels. His stare was a physical weight pressing into her. The police are useless to you. They cannot shield you from what is already in motion. Her voice, stripped of its plea, was now a shard of glass. Why not? Before a lie could form on his lips, Feels. A sound echoed through the house. 3 heavy, deliberate knocks on the front door. A death knell. Sebastian let her go, melting into the hall, pulling the door almost shut behind him. Almost. Arya became a shadow against the wall, straining to hear. Feels. Vince's voice was a low, urgent murmur. Boss, we have him. A professional from Sicily. Sebastian's reply was quieter still, a ghost of a sound, so they took the bait. Diego Vince's tone was now thick with a dark, final satisfaction. Feels. He's the traitor. Sebastian's voice became perceptibly sharper, colder. Feels. Who sanctioned this, Diego or the Lombardis? A heavy silence fell, thick with unspoken violence. Then Vince spoke. We don't know yet. Another pause stretched, taut as a wire. Vince's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Feels. Boss, do they know who she is? The air left Arya's lungs. Sebastian's response was slow, each word a carefully placed stone building the walls of her prison. They have to know she's a Venti. If they didn't, this entire move makes no sense. Feels. The world tilted, groaning on its axis, that name. It reverberated in the hollow chambers of her mind. Venti, her mother's name. The door flew open. Both men snapped around, Vince's face a mask of pure shock. Feels. While Sebastian's became unnervingly blank. She marched toward him. You will tell me exactly what is happening now. He opened his mouth, but she sliced through his attempt. Feels. Who are you people? What is this? Was this your doing? Did I almost die tonight because of you? Sebastian's features hardened into granite. His hand locked onto her arm, steering her back toward the bedroom as if she were a pawn on a board. Heels. The door clicked shut behind them, a sound of soft, horrifying finality. Get your hands off me, she hissed, tearing her arm from his grasp. I'm calling the police. I want you out of my house. He moved with a speed that wasn't human. Heels. His hands clamping onto both of her wrists, forcing her back onto the bed. Her knees gave way on the mattress. She collapsed under his weight. He loomed above her, pinning her, his face a breath away from hers. Listen to me, he growled, his voice a low, Heels. Like it or not, you are in this now. Heels. You are not going anywhere. In that moment, the illusion of the kind stranger evaporated like smoke. What remained was something older, harder, the archetype, the patriarch. If I must tie you to this bed to keep you safe, I will. Heels. It was the language of possession, where protection and imprisonment were two sides of the same debased coin. The terror that seized her was not just of him, but of the inescapable gravity of his power. Her question, who are you, Heels, was the last gasp of a world about to be extinguished. His answer wasn't a name, it was a verdict. I am Sebastian Biano, head of Clan Ventaro. He placed his name, his clan, at the center of her universe, Heels, defining her by the one thing she could not escape, her blood, Aventi. The name was a key to a tomb she never knew she was buried in, Heels. My grandfather died before I was born, she argued, a desperate attempt to anchor herself to the simple story of her life. He waved it away. That is a conversation for another time. Her own past would be given to her on his terms. Her home, Heels, the one sacred symbol of her safety, was systematically remade before her eyes, first a fortress, now a cage. He spoke of unseen guards, Vince, Luigi, others, who now populated its walls, promising it was the safest place in the world. Her retort, Heels. You've made my house a Mafia hideout, was laced with the bitter irony of a woman who still believed she had a house to be violated. Sebastian's smirk was the cruel sound of the final lock turning. His words dismantled the very ground beneath her feet. Heels. This house was always a Mafia hideout, long before I rented it from you, and long before you inherited it. Heels. This land has been a Clan Ventaro asset for decades. The truth landed not with a crash, but with the quiet, devastating weight of an established fact. He then aimed for the heart of her identity. Her mother. You truly have no idea who your mother was, Heels. Her protest was a recital of the fiction she'd lived. The quiet academic, the Renaissance art expert from Colombia, a ghost he was about to exorcise. Sebastian calmly tore the portrait from the wall. Your mother was the second in command of Clan Ventaro, Heels. She answered only to my father. The legacy was a death sentence. Her grandfather, the right-hand man. This house, this life, all fruit from a tree poisoned at the root. Her mother never broke free. Heels. She only hid you from it. The room began to spin, the physical world mirroring the chaos in her mind. Her entire life had been a stage, and the curtain had just been ripped away. The word no, Heels, was a pathetic whisper against the hurricane of his revelation. Sebastian's actions were perfunctory, the movements of a keeper securing a priceless, dangerous animal. The window that would not open, the 20-foot drop, the simple, Heels, brutal architecture of her new enclosure. He drew closer. She flinched, a primal response to a predator, but his touch was a disarming lie, a thumb stroking her cheek. It was a gesture of ownership disguised as comfort. Heels, the oldest tool in the art of control. Heels. I will protect you, he vowed, and the words fell not like a blanket, but like the cold, hard bars of a cage. No matter what, regardless of what you think of me, I will keep you safe. That is not negotiable. He left. Heels. The click of the door and the turn of a lock were merely the final punctuation on her new reality. A prisoner, Arya sat on the bed, frozen, her mind fracturing under the impossible weight. Heels. The man who just imprisoned her was the one who held her through the night. Her mother was a stranger, her family, a ghost story she was hearing for the first time. She buried her face in her hands, fingers digging into her scalp, Heels, trying to find an anchor in the storm. Her mother, a matriarch of the mob. Her grandfather, a Dawn's most trusted man. Her home, a criminal sanctuary. The entire structure of her life was a lie built on a foundation of ghosts, feels. And now, the man who detonated her worlds was her only shield against a threat she couldn't even name. She sat motionless, trying to force the shattered pieces of her memory into a coherent shape, before the question clawed its way out from the abyss. Feels. How did I end up here? Arya remained on the bed, painstakingly reassembling the narrative. Her mother's money. It was always more than her father's, more than seemed possible for a professor in Detroit. The immaculate posture feels that air of absolute command. Then the business trips. Weeks at a time to places that were never clearly defined. And Arya's own life a cloistered existence. No sleepovers, no wild nights. None of the small freedoms her friends accepted as normal. Feels. She had always seen it as a kind of suffocating maternal anxiety. Now the pattern resolved into a terrifying crystal-clear image. Her mother hadn't been parenting. She had been hiding her, protecting an asset. She was enforcing a quarantine, feels, isolating her daughter from an entire world with every ounce of her being, Italy. The name itself was forbidden. Her mother never spoke of it, never named a single relative or the town she was born in, feels. And when she died, a vicious pancreatic cancer that consumed her in 3 months, Arya was left in a daze, the loss too swift to even process. For a woman of such means, the bank accounts were empty, gone. Only this house remained. No calls from Italy, feels. No forgotten relatives crawling out of the woodwork, feels. But there was one thing, one anomaly. At the funeral, impossibly decadent, impossibly expensive, had arrived with no card, no name, nothing. After that, a lawyer from Italy, a man she'd never met, feels, contacted her with nonsensical news. You are the sole heir to your family's estate in Scario. Her thoughts fractured as she launched herself off the bed, her fists hammering against the unyielding wood. Vince! Luigi! Feels. The names were a raw wound in her throat. I need my computer, my phone, you can't do this. Only silence answered. She slammed her fists against the door again, harder. Let me out! Nothing. Arya pressed her forehead against the cool wood, feels, utterly defeated. So many secrets. Her mother died without a note, without a word, leaving Arya nothing but the crushing weight of questions she could never answer. Feels. Only that one anonymous wreath, black beautiful and a silent omen. And now there was Sebastian Biano, Clan Ventaro, a world buried so deep, she never even felt the tremors. She heard footsteps approaching. A key turned in the lock. Feels. Sebastian stood in the doorway, holding an elegant white linen dress, exactly the kind of thing her mother would have loved, a costume for her new life. Arya, his voice was calm, steady. An order. I found this. Put it on. You have 1 hour. Feels. I need you downstairs. Something inside her finally snapped. In a single fluid motion, she crossed the room, her hand seizing the collar of his shirt, yanking him down to her level. I don't know what sick game you think you're playing, feels, but you will tell me everything right now, or I swear to God I will find a way to go to the police. Model. Feels. His eyes went dark, black voids. He moved with a speed that defied reality, spinning her, forcing her back until her legs hit the edge of the bed. She collapsed. In an instant, he was a shadow over her, a crushing weight pinning her to the mattress. Feels. His mouth claimed hers, not with violence, but with a raw, demanding pressure that wiped her mind clean. Her hands pushed against a chest carved from stone, completely useless. He was pure, contained power. Then the assault changed. The kiss softened, feels, twisting into something that almost felt tender. When he pulled away, the air was thick, their breathing ragged. Calm yourself, he whispered, his voice a low, frayed sound. Just calm down, and I'll explain it all, feels. But you have to stop fighting me long enough to hear the words. A war ignited inside her, a battle between blinding fury and another feeling. Something far more dangerous. She forced her body to go still. Feels. He kissed her again. A soft, gentle touch this time. A caress that felt more violating than all the force before it. He shifted, his hands enclosed her wrists, pinning them to the pillow above her head. He held her there, his gaze burning into her. Feels. So intense it felt like it could turn her thoughts to ash. Just listen to me, he said, his voice quiet, deliberate. That's all I'm asking. You listen, then you can decide. She waited, her entire world shrinking to the places where his skin met hers. Feels. In 1 hour, Sebastian said, each word a chip of ice. A city official will be here. He is coming to conduct a ceremony, his eyes locked with hers. Our ceremony. Feels. We are getting married, Arya. Her eyes blew wide. A jolt of pure, freezing shock shot through her entire being. What are you even talking about? She writhed beneath him, trying to break free, to throw him off. But he was an anchor, feels, holding her in the exact center of his storm. Stop. His voice dropped heavy with a dark promise. Stop it and listen. The words felt like they were torn from her own throat. You're a maniac. I am not marrying you. I am not. 5 years ago, he said, heels, his voice cutting clean through her panic. The Lamberti family set a trap, a meeting in Sicily. Your mother was supposed to be the target, but my father, he saw it coming. Luciano Biano took the bullet meant for Ora Venti. He died protecting her. Heels. An immense hollow cavern opened up inside Arya's chest. I took his place, he went on. Your mother and I, we ran things together as equals. Arya's mind stuttered, unable to picture her quiet, bookish mother dealing in territory and armaments. Heels. The question tasted like broken glass. What kind of things? A shadow of something dark that looked like amusement crossed his face, the expression of a man poking a caged beast. Import-export. A fire ignited deep in her gut. Don't. Heels. The word came out with more force than she knew she had. Don't you dare play your little games with me. Tell me the damn truth. He leaned closer, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. Weapons. Art antiques. Heels. The kind that belong in museums but end up in private hands. Anything valuable enough to be worth the risk. Her eyes slid shut, blocking out the light. Heels. So my mother was a gun runner. Your mother was a businesswoman who inherited a 5-generation system. She was a genius, a master strategist. And she built a wall around you to keep you clean of it, to give you a choice she never had. Heels. The truth settled on Arya like a funeral shroud, suffocating every reality she had ever known to be true. She could barely form the next question. You knew her better than I did. I knew her, and I respected her. For a second, his face softened. Heels. I knew you existed, of course, but Ora was a master of compartmentalization. Nobody in Sicily knew she had an American daughter. He paused, his gaze sharpening. And then you walked into this house, and you changed the entire game. Arya's breath caught. Heels. Her skin prickling with a sudden horrifying dread. Let go of me. A shape that was not a smile formed on his lips, and his grip on her wrists tightened. A silent reminder of who held all the power here. Heels. Not until you hear the whole story, Bella. He leaned in again, his mouth grazing hers, starting an internal blaze she was desperate to put out. Her throat tightened, but she had to know. Did she? Is this what my mother really wanted? You promised her, Heels, didn't you, on her deathbed? Sebastian's answer was another kiss, harder this time. It was a pure display of control, crushing her questions with the sheer force of his mouth until she stopped fighting and could only feel. Keep talking, Heels. He breathed against her lips. And I'll keep doing this. I will kiss you until you pass out if that's what it takes to make you listen. Her whole body locked up, trapped between the instinct to kill him and something that felt terrifyingly like surrender. Heels. And in the last rational part of her mind, a question began to form, an answer she wanted to run from. Heels. How could she hate him with every fiber of her being and want him in the exact same breath? How could his touch erase every instinct screaming at her to fight back? I am marrying you because it's the most logical, strategic move for both of us. Heels. When the Lambertas tried to take me out 2 months ago, the mole was inside my own organization. My own cousin Diego sold me out. Good men died. The whole crew fell apart. I had to disappear, Heels. Plan my return while the world thought I was dead or too broken to be a threat. The question escaped her lips, her voice shockingly small. And what does any of that have to do with everything? His gaze once held hers, and the intensity was so absolute. Heels. She couldn't have looked away if she tried. Heels. This house was the one place on earth no one would ever think to search for me. I just needed time. And then you showed up, Ora Venta's daughter, the secret heir everyone thought was just a myth. His mouth twisted into a colder, more calculating line. Heels. You're an asset I never saw coming. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped her throat. So this wedding is nothing but a business deal. He just watched her for a long, silent beat, his expression a perfect mask. The fact that I find you incredibly attractive, Heels. Well, that's just a secondary benefit. He shifted, pressing his body against hers, and she felt it, the hard, undeniable proof of his words against her thigh. It would seem, he said, his voice laced with a raw amusement that his eyes did not share, Heels, that I am a very lucky man. Heels. Desire in the face of absolute terror. It's a primal, twisted response to power, rushing through her as equal parts heat and shame. Her defiance, a weak don't even think about it, is a pathetic attempt to regain some control. Heels. Sebastian's next move is a masterpiece of psychological warfare. He pulls out his pistol, placing it on the nightstand. The click is soft, final. That single sound says more than words ever could. The gun is a tool, but he is the real weapon. Feels. He doesn't need it to own her. The smug look on his face is one of absolute certainty. He then delivers the final blow. We are getting married. Today. It's not a proposal, it's a declaration. Feels. Ora Venti's daughter has officially joined with Luciano Biano's son. She is no longer a woman, she is a symbol, a banner to rally what's left of his broken army. Feels. She finally voices the one fear that cuts through the fog. And the Lambertus? His face turns to granite. The performance is over. Oh, they'll come here to finish the job they believe they started. The danger isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. Feels. And she is the bait. Ice flows through her veins as she realizes her true role in this horrifying game. And yet his hand in her hair is gentle, a shocking contradiction. With me, you're always safe, he murmurs, the voice of a predator promising sanctuary. Feels. I will protect you with my own life. It is the vow of a king, the promise of a warden to his most valuable asset. His protection is not something she can accept or refuse. It simply is. Feels. So, how are we supposed to survive this? Her question is a desperate grasp for logic, for a plan. His response is a smile that dismisses her fear, filled with the supreme arrogance of a man who has never known failure. You let me worry about that. Feels. Just focus on getting ready, Miss Venti. Biano. The new name hangs between them, a brand on her soul. The click of the door shutting is a sound of absolute finality. She's alone, frozen, the white dress on the bed a silent mockery of her fate. Feels. In this single moment, she is caught between two impossible worlds, the life her mother built to protect her, and the violent truth she has just been forced to wear. Feels. Is this what her mother would have wanted? The question is a frantic search for reason in the rubble. Did her mother die thinking the perfect shield she'd built would last forever, that her daughter would live a life untouched by this violent world? Feels. Or did she know deep down that the vortex would eventually suck her in? 60 minutes. That is all the time she has to process lifetime of lies and choose her future. But it's not a choice between two paths. It's a choice between two cages. Feels. She has to walk down those stairs and chain herself to a man who is both her savior and her doom. Staring into the mirror, Arya sees a stranger with her face, draped in the elegant, cruel punchline of a wedding gown. Feels. The marks of violence are the only jewels for this ceremony. A bruised neck, a cut lip, a shadow blooming across her cheekbone. She forces a bitter smile devoid of any humor. A wedding was a dream she never dared to have. Feels. A future she never allowed herself to picture. She had built a fortress around her heart, certain it could never be breached. It took just 14 days for that fortress to be ground into dust. Feels. Her entire world shattered and rebuilt into this grotesque mockery of a life. No makeup, only the fading tattoos of trauma and a dress chosen from her closet by her jailer. She finally sees a reflection for what it is. Feels. The reflection stared back, eyes holding a silent scream, a perfect portrait of a woman being forced to a cliff's edge, utterly without power. The thought of lipstick is so absurd a laugh almost tears from her throat. Feels. Walking down the grand staircase is a descent into another world, her hand gripping the banister like it's the only solid thing left. Below, the scene is set for this new reality. The low rumble of male voices, cut by the sharp heels. Jarring sound of a woman's laughter. She pauses, taking in the players. Vince, the silent guard. Luigi, the casual killer, a hand resting close to the cold steel of his gun. Feels. A man in glasses clutches a folder like a shield. The city official. A man from a world that has no power here, his eyes darting around, mapping every possible exit. Beside Sebastian stands a younger man, Feels, his face carved with the same predatory stillness that is the Biano family signature. And then there is Margarita. The artist is gone. In her place stands a warrior in cargo pants and a tight shirt, hair pulled back ready for a fight. Feels. She wears this atmosphere of gunpowder and danger so comfortably it sends a chill down Arya's spine, a terrible premonition of what you must become to survive in this world. Feels. Sebastian moves toward her, and the very gravity of the room shifts with him. The men around him react like soldiers whose general has just taken the field. Arya, his voice is a masterpiece of infuriating calm. He gestures to the younger man. Feels. This is Alfonso Venti, Margarita's brother. He's also your cousin. The introduction is dropped like a stone, another piece of a history she never knew laid at her feet. Alfonso's eyes measure her with a cool, detached respect. Margarita's grin is sharp, Feels, possessive. Well, look at you, cousin, snagging the handsome one. The words are just noise. Her mind cannot compute the sudden, violent expansion of a family tree she never even knew existed. Feels. More family. Sebastian's hand is a warm, steady weight on her elbow, an anchor in the storm as he guides her forward. A part of her is screaming to fight, to demand answers, to just stop and breathe. But the body obeys. Feels. She lets him lead her toward the terrified official, a man who looks like he's about to officiate his own execution. As they stand before the makeshift altar, the man clears his throat. His hands tremble as he opens the folder. His voice cracks. Feels. He tries again. I have to ask if you are both entering into this union of your own free will, without coercion or... Sebastian's answer cuts the air. Sharp. Final. Yes. Feels. His answer was a blade slicing through the room's thick tension, leaving no room for argument. He lifted her hand to his mouth, and the press of his knuckles was a shock that shot straight up her arm. His giz was a physical thing. Feels. Dark and heavy with an intensity that threw her heart out of rhythm. The official's eyes flicked to her. And you, Miss Venti? Arya swallowed, her throat as dry as sand. She could feel the weight of every stare in that room. Feels. A pressure she could almost touch. The urge to run was a deafening scream inside her skull. To deny it all. To list every sane, logical reason this could not happen. Instead, she found her voice, forging it into a weapon against the chaos inside. Feels. Do I have an alternative? The official, from behind his glasses, could only blink in pure, helpless confusion. Yes. Feels. The confession felt like swallowing shards of glass, every word forced past the terror tightening around her throat. Yes, I do. The signing was over in moments, a few quick strokes of a pen, a series of initials. Feels. The dry scratching of ink on paper was the only sound that marked the moment Arya Venti was legally erased, reborn as a Zia Biano. The official gathered his documents, his hands unsteady. You can collect your marriage certificate from City Hall tomorrow. Feels. He hesitated. Or his gaze darted nervously to Luigi, who had appeared behind him, a hand resting with deliberate weight on his hip. Or I could have it delivered. First thing. Sebastian's voice was ice. That would be better. Feels. The official practically ran. The instant the door clicked shut, Margarita was on her, crushing Arya in a hug that forced every last ounce of air from her lungs. Feels. Welcome to the family, cousin. Arya was a statue in her arms, her mind still trying to catch up. Is that? She pulled back just enough to speak. Are you armed? Just a 9mm. It's nothing. Feels. Margarita said it like she was talking about a shade of lipstick. I will never get used to this. The words were a lie, and Arya knew it as they left her lips. She was already adjusting to far too many impossible things. She took Margarita's arm, Feels, leading her away from the men talking in low voices by the window. Arya dropped her voice. I thought you had feelings for Sebastian, you said. Margarita's laugh cut her off. I do have a thing for Sebastian, Feels. We've been in each other's lives since we were kids. A sudden softness appeared in her eyes. But not that kind of thing, Arya. Feels. Never that kind. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. And it's painfully obvious he has them for you. But the tension in Arya's shoulders had hardened into stone. But everything you told me about him? Margarita laughed again. A louder, Feels, more real sound this time. That, my dear, was a test. Her smile widened into something predatory. And sweetheart, you couldn't hide your jealousy for a second. It was written all over your beautiful face. A hot wave of shame washed over Arya. Feels. Humiliation. She glanced across the room at Sebastian, deep in conversation with Alonso. They were all playing her. It was a performance. And she, a psychologist who had built a career on reading people, had walked right into their trap. Feels. I need a moment alone. The words felt like they were choking her. Feels. This is too much. Her body turns a pivot toward the stairs, a desperate search for space, for a single quiet breath. Behind her, Sebastian's voice is a low murmur to Alfonso, but she forces herself not to look back. She can't. Feels. The landing on the second floor is dominated by a colossal oil painting. Generations of the Venti family, their eyes all hard steel and unforgiving judgment, stare out from the canvas. Her own eyes scan the faces until they find her. Feels. No older than 16, standing just apart from the rest of the clan. Dark hair pulled back in a braid so tight it looks painful. Her chin is lifted, a portrait of pure defiance, and her eyes, they hold a wild spark. Feels. A fire not yet stamped out by years of brutal conditioning. My mother, the head of the Mafia. Feels. Arya speaks the words aloud, just to feel their impossible weight. It feels like a lie, utterly wrong. So that was it, Mom? Your final performance. A last secret taken to the dirt. The girl in the frame offers only a silent, painted gaze. What's our play? Feels. By the windows, Alfonso stands with Sebastian, his posture relaxed, but his eyes miss nothing. Sebastian just watches the amber liquid swirl in his glass, the last rays of sunlight captured in the crystal. We wait. Alfonso's brow quirks, just barely, feels. We wait to see who blinks, who stays quiet, and who makes the first move out of desperation. He takes a slow, measured sip. We'll see who's loyal and who's a snake. And when the Lambertus finally reveal their hand, feels. His face hardens into a mask of cold surgical resolve. We will be ready. Feels. For a long moment, Alfonso just watched him, reading the tension coiled tight in his shoulders. You seem calm. I was calm. Sebastian's gaze drifts upward to the top of the staircase where Arya vanished. But now, I have something to lose. Feels. Someone I have to protect. A flicker of something that looked like empathy softened Alfonso's expression. She's stronger than you think. I know exactly how strong she is. Sebastian's voice dropped, quiet, edged with a fear he'd never felt before. Feels. That's what worries me. Just then, Margarita appears in the doorway, a phone in her hand. Seb, what's your head count in the basement? 6 men, with enough firepower and gear to take on a small country. Margarita's thumbs fly across the screen. Feels. Perfect. I'm spreading the word, then, letting our network know the happy couple is home. And just like that, she was gone, her steps echoing down the long hall. Sebastian walks to the window, watching the sea dissolve into blackness. Feels. His world was shrinking. In the end, he'd either be buried on this estate, or he'd be running the whole damn thing. These next few days were the final bloody act. He throws back the rest of his drink in one sharp motion and turns for the stairs. Feels. Arya is lying on the bed, wrapped only in a towel, her hair still damp. The day plays over and over in her head, a loop she can't escape, the sham wedding. Margarita's cold betrayal, the portrait, her mother's teenage face staring back. Feels. The door swings open, heavy footsteps cross the floor. Feels. And then, Sebastian. He didn't just enter the room. The atmosphere itself bent to his will, a deliberate, controlled power she was finally learning to recognize. Every movement was an exercise in restraint. The bed dipped as he sat. Feels. Let me see. His voice was a low hum in the quiet. Your face, your neck, she let him, allowed his hand to tilt her chin. There was a shocking gentleness in his touch. Feels. Mapping the bruise on her cheek before tracing the ugly purple that choked her throat. His thumb grazed her lip. For an instant, she forgot to breathe. I need to get something. His eyes seized hers. Feels. I will do anything, whatever is necessary to protect you. That you need to understand is not up for debate. The words hit like fragments of glass. Feels. He came back holding something frozen. The shock of cold on her skin stole her breath as he traced the ice across her neck, charting the landscape of her pain. Look on the bright side. His entire presence shifted. There is, at least, Feels, some chemistry between us. Every one of her defenses flared to life. She held his gaze, her voice a weapon she struggled to keep steady. What on earth would give you the idea that I'm attracted to you? The journal you write in. The ice made it slow. Feels. Cold journey over her burning skin. You spent an entire page trying to figure me out. Humiliation washed over her, hot and suffocating. She sat bolt upright, clutching the towel to her chest. You went through my things? Feels. That notebook has confidential patient files. You had no right. Feels. I only read the parts about me. His eyes had that dangerous glint she was beginning to know. The rest is irrelevant. The ice slid lower, a cold line drawn over her collarbone. Her skin burned where he touched, her own body trying to melt the frost. Feels. He watched her face, his focus absolute, reading every flicker of emotion. You wrote that I was dangerously compelling, that I made you feel unbalanced, drawn in against your better judgment. His fingers slipped under the towel's edge. Suddenly, Feels. The ice was between her breasts. A sharp, brutal shock against her fevered skin, a sound escaped her throat. Part gasp, part moan, entirely involuntary. Sebastian pulled her in. Feels. His mouth crashing down on hers with a hunger that was both calculated and all-consuming. Feels. And this time, she didn't fight. No hesitation, no walls. Arya kissed him back with the frantic urgency of a drowning soul finding its only source of air. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, clumsy and desperate. Feels. Until pure frustration took over and she just tore it open. Sebastian's hand shot up, grabbing her wrists. His breathing was a ragged mess. He whispered her name. Arya, as his own hands found the towel knotted around her. With one sharp, decisive pull, Feels, he let it fall. Whatever control he had left simply shattered. His shirt was gone in a single ripping motion, his hands immediately back on her skin. She climbed into his lap, her body fitting against his like it was made for exactly this. Feels. They were lost. All mouths and hands and suffocating heat. until her fingers found his belt, traced lower and wrapped around the cold, hard metal of the gun at the small of his back. Heels. In one smooth movement, she had the weapon free, pressing the cold steel hard against his temple. Sebastian didn't even flinch. No, instead, a laugh rumbled deep in his chest, a real surprised laugh. Heels. As if the gun to his head was just making things more interesting. "What in God's name are you doing?" he asked, his voice a perfect mix of shock and raw admiration. Arya's voice was far steadier than she felt, sitting naked in his lap with his own gun. Heels. "This is the new plan. We are walking out of this house. You are driving me to the airport, and you are putting me on a plane back to my life, the one you burned to the ground." His grin just got wider. Heels. "So this is the grand escape? Abandoning your husband?" The words were a casual, sharp-edged test. Such loyalty. She didn't move. Don't. The pressure of the barrel against his skull increased, making her point absolute. "Don't you dare mock me." Heels. "And don't ever forget whose blood is in my veins." His gaze challenged hers, daring her to pull the trigger. "And if my answer is no," she gave no reply. Instead, she turned, aimed at the open window, and fired. A single. Heels. Deafening blast that tore the night in two. Sebastian was perfectly still, caught in pure, undiluted shock. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" "I used to go to a shooting range. It helped me think." The muzzle was back at his temple. Heels. "A kind of stress relief. Turns out I have a natural talent for it." A laugh escaped him, not of mockery, but of genuine absolute admiration. "You are without a doubt your mother's daughter." And then the door exploded inward. Heels. Luigi, Vince, Margarita. The whole team flooded the room, weapons up, moving like a single deadly organism. Heels. Margarita took in the scene instantly, Arya naked on the boss's lap, a gun pressed to his head, the air thick with the ragged aftermath of something. Her eyebrows shot toward her hairline. "Oh well. Sorry to interrupt." Heels. "This particular training exercise." Luigi and Vince began to back away slowly, their faces perfectly blank. "The situation is under control," Sebastian said, his eyes never leaving Arya's. "All of you out." Arya's hand was impossibly steady on the gun. Heels. "My husband and I need some privacy. Leave." Margarita's professional mask finally cracked into pure amusement. "Understood, of course. Take all the time you need." She backed out, pulling the ruined door shut behind her. The silence that fell was heavy. Heels electric. Arya's chest rose and fell, her body thrumming with adrenaline and something much, much wilder. Heels. Sebastian's eyes dropped to her chest, watching the frantic rhythm of her breathing. "You have no idea what you're doing to me right now, do you?" She forced the words out, breathless but firm. "And you have no idea what I'm capable of?" Heels. The gun pressed harder. "Here's what happens now. We are leaving. Tonight." Her glare was a wildfire. "Now give me the towel." He held her gaze for a long moment, his hand moving toward it with agonizing slowness. Heels. His fingers brushed the cloth, but instead of handing it over, he moved like a snake. One hand knocked the gun aside as the other flipped her onto her back in one fluid, violent motion. She was pinned, her wrists trapped above her head in one of his fists, Heels, while his other hand calmly ejected the magazine and cleared the chamber. Heels. The gun hit the floor with a useless clatter. Rule number 1, when you hold someone at gunpoint, his body was a crushing weight on top of her, all muscle and heat and raw power. Never let them distract you. She struggled, but it was useless. Heels. He held her with terrifying ease. "Let me go. Just listen." His voice turned hard, unfamiliar. "Even if I took you to that airport, even if I put you on a plane to Detroit, they know who you are now. They know your father's daughter exists." Heels. "And they will hunt you down." His eyes made her face the brutal truth of it. "You think the Lambertus will just let you disappear? You think for 1 second they won't use you to get to me, to my family?" A deep, inescapable chill settled into her bones. Heels. "Your plan was flawed from the very beginning." Heels. He tightened his grip on her wrists. "Trusting me is your only move. It's the only way you survive. Your mother did. And I was loyal to her until the day she died. I swear to you, I will be loyal to you for the rest of my life." And just like that, Heels, the fight went out of Arya. Her body went limp beneath him. And what was she even fighting? She'd been obsessed with this man since she first laid eyes on him. She was drawn to his arrogance, to the danger that clung to him like a shadow. Heels. She craved the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing in the world. She'd filled journals trying to analyze him, to reason away the pull, but this feeling was primal. It didn't listen to logic. Reaching up, she guided his mouth back to hers. Heels. No tricks this time, no distraction. Heels. This was surrender, a raw, honest confession of want. A groan was torn from his throat as his control finally broke into a million pieces. He let go of her wrists, his hands burying themselves in her hair, rediscovering the shape of her body, heels. Touching her like a man who had been starving for weeks. She was at his belt, at his zipper, pulling him closer, demanding all of him. When his clothes lay with hers on the floor, she wrapped her body around his, pulling him inside her. This time, heels. As he moved into her, there was no fight, no holding back, only acceptance, and as he filled her, the feeling was so overwhelming it stole the air from her lungs. It felt like coming home, like being made whole. Heels. A feeling so right it was absolutely terrifying. I need you, Arya. Heels. His words were a fractured prophecy against her skin. I need you by my side. I need you to be mine. Speech failed her. Thought abandoned her. Her body, however, gave its own desperate answer. In the press of her hips against his, heels. In the raw sounds torn from her throat. In the way her nails scored his shoulders like a claim. Something foundational in her fractured. The central pillar of her very self simply gave way. The cautious psychologist, heels. The woman who built fortresses of logic and control, she died in that room, and in her place stood a creature of impulse. A woman who chose the beautiful, terrible risk of desire over the illusion of safety. Perhaps this was the Venti blood, heels, that cursed inheritance. Or perhaps this was simply Arya, finally, devastatingly alive. Heels. The moment the climax shattered through her, his name a broken cry on her lips, the last architecture of her old life dissolved into dust. When he followed, his face buried in the curve of her neck, a new and terrible certainty settled over her. Heels. Nothing would ever be the same. They lay tangled in the quiet wreckage of the aftermath, two souls clinging to a fragile truce, his hand traced idle, searing patterns across her back. Stay with me. It was not a command, heels. It was the supplication of a condemned man. Arya responded not with words, but with a kiss to his jaw, his throat. A silent, binding oath. Outside, the ocean raged against the cliffs. Elsewhere, armed men stood vigil. And in the wider world, heels, a storm was gathering, just for them, heels. And in that moment, enveloped in Sebastian's arms, Arya uncovered a truth she never thought to seek. It was not his power she had found, it was her own. Her entire existence had been a study in caution, in making herself small, heels, a desperate flight from her mother's shadow. But what if safety had never been the objective? What if the objective was power? And what if, in this beautiful, violent man, she had found the one place she was always meant to conquer, heels? Arya awoke to a profound warmth, a solid chest beneath her cheek, strong arms holding her in a way that felt like destiny. His breathing was deep and even. He slept. She tried to slip away, to steal back a piece of herself before the light, heels. But his arms tightened instantly, a possessive cage. His voice was a low, sleep-round growl. Heels. You weren't truly considering an exit on our first morning together, were you? A statement of ownership, not a question. His hands began a slow, deliberate rediscovery of the territory he had so brutally claimed. When she finally met his gaze, heels, his eyes held something that made her heart stop. Desire was there, yes, a burning coal, but beneath it lay something softer, more dangerous, love. The word struck her with the force of a physical blow. She had never been the target of such a look, heels, never allowed herself the weakness of imagining it. His mouth found hers, insistent, and she was already surrendering when the knock came. Sharp, insistent. Boss! Vince's voice, a blade cutting through the door. Heels. Large yacht just dropped anchor offshore. Sebastian went absolutely still. Heels. The intimacy between them flash froze, replaced by something arctic and hard. He was out of the bed in a single fluid motion, pulling on clothes like a suit of armor. The pistol was suddenly at the small of his back as if it had grown from his spine. Heels. Arya rushed to the window. Peering out, she saw it. A sleek white yacht, a phantom on the morning water, looking serene and deadly. It could be nothing. People anchor here occasionally. I don't operate on could be. Sebastian was beside her, heels, a palpable tension radiating from him like heat. This is a private inlet. If they're here, his eyes swept over the vessel with a predator's cold intensity. They could be precisely who we've been anticipating. Heels. The marriage announcement was released yesterday. Their response time is impressive. That familiar icy dread began to seep back into Arya's veins. You believe it's them? The Lamberts? He didn't reply, striding instead toward the main room, heels, now transformed into a command center. Margarita stood at the window, binoculars fixed to her eyes, her relaxed morning demeanor replaced with razor-edged concentration. It must be the Lambertus. She didn't lower the optics, heels. No one else would have the appalling taste to wear black suits on a luxury yacht in this climate. Amateurs. Alfonso emerged from the armory, slamming a fresh magazine into his sidearm with a clean, violent snap. We could dispatch a fishing boat, Yields. Conduct a closer reconnaissance. No, Sebastian took the binoculars from Margarita, his face a mask of cold strategy. Heels. The warmth evaporated from his expression, leaving behind the cold calculus of a general. We do nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is the first lesson in Sebastian's theater of war, and to Alfonso, it is baffling. Heels. The enemy will not advance until nightfall. They are observers, spectators counting their targets. Lowering his binoculars, Sebastian outlines the scene. They must project weakness, an illusion of blissful ignorance. Heels. We have to make them think we're an easy target, he explains, his gaze sweeping the room. Let them get comfortable. The enemy must be lured in by the belief that every advantage is theirs. Margarita's face mirrors his cold resolve. Heels. So, we put on a show, exactly. Sebastian then turns to her and Arya. Get your swimsuits. We're spending the morning by the water. For Arya and Margarita, a shared glance communicates everything. Just another day in the Venti family tragedy. Heels. And so the performance begins. 30 minutes later, Arya is seated on a stone dock beside Margarita, their feet breaking the water's surface while a boat rocks gently beside them. The sun feels deceptively real, a warm lie on her shoulders. The ocean, Heels, a glittering, beautiful stage. But somewhere across that tableau, men are watching through the crosshairs of a rifle. The dissonance is a physical weight. Then Sebastian appears. Clad only in swim trunks, Heels. He is a living map of lean muscle and controlled violence. He doesn't pause. He simply cuts cleanly into the water. Try not to stare at the yacht, Margarita murmurs, her voice low as she sips a drink too colorful for the moment's gravity. Heels. The danger isn't here just yet. We should enjoy this while we can. But Arya's attention is fixed on the water where Sebastian vanished. He is under for too long. A familiar hum of anxiety builds inside her. Heels. Right before he breaks the surface near the motorboat's hull, his hands manipulating something just below the waterline. What is he doing? Margarita simply swirls her drink, the picture of serene indifference. Planting charges. C4, probably. Heels. Semtex if we're running low on the good stuff. The line is delivered with such profound normalcy, such casual expertise that Arya's mind momentarily stalls. Then the implication detonates. He's what? Sebastian is always prepared. Heels. Margarita tilts her head back, absorbing the sun. He has backup plans for his backup plans. Arya's gaze flicks across the bay, landing on a zodiac raft hidden near the boathouse. Heels. What's that for? Margarita offers another dismissive shrug. Our exit strategy. Told you. He's prepared. In one fluid motion, Sebastian surfaces, hauling himself onto the dock as water streams from his torso. He moves directly to Arya, Heels, leaning in to kiss her before she can form a single thought. You are not blowing up my cottage. She intends it as a command, intends as a plea. His lips are still on hers. I'll buy you a better one, bigger, anywhere you want in the world. Heels. Arya just shakes her head, the sheer, crushing weight of this new life finally settling upon her. 2 weeks ago, I had a normal life. It might have been boring, but it was normal. Her eyes drift to Margarita. Heels. Already pouring another drink before the clock has even struck 11. Heels. Drinking Aperol at 11 in the morning. Margarita simply raises her glass, a portrait of defiant tragic indulgence. Sweetheart, it's a Venti family thing. She then recites the day's liquid itinerary. Cocktails at 11, wine with lunch, Heels. Harder spirits in the afternoon, tequila at dinner, and a whiskey nightcap. She takes a deep swallow. Get used to it. Arya's objection is feeble, even to her own ears. A part of her is already becoming harder, colder, Heels. But before that thought can fully crystallize, strong arms seize her from behind. It is Sebastian, lifting her as if she weighs nothing at all. Heels. What are you doing? But his eyes have that feral intensity she is becoming dangerously accustomed to. Something I've wanted to do since the second I saw you. With that, he launches them from the dock, pulling her down into the water with him. Heels. They come up sputtering, her shock dissolving into incredulous laughter. In that moment, the yacht, the gunmen, the explosives, the entire inferno that had consumed her life in 14 days, all of it recedes. Heels. Sebastian's hands find her waist beneath the surface, pulling her body flush against his. Ever tell you about the hidden cove? He growls. Biting her lip to suppress a smile, Arya replies, Yeah, you might have mentioned it. His grin becomes predatory. Heels. Did I mention what I'm going to do to you there? The playful energy vanishes as she clamps a hand over his mouth. Heels. Just promise me, she whispers. We make it through tonight. He turns his head, pressing his lips to her palm, his green eyes burning in the light. The mask is gone, replaced by a terrifying, raw certainty. I will never let anyone touch you, Bella. Feels. Not them. Never. His grip on her waist tightens, shifting from a simple embrace to an act of pure possession. I swear it. Out on the water, the enemy yacht waits, a silent, menacing shadow. Below their own boat, explosives are primed. In the house, Feels. Guns are being loaded. But here, caught in his arms, she lets herself believe the impossible. Feels. There is no other option. The alternative is an emptiness she refuses to face. As the sun finally bleeds out below the horizon, smearing the sky in violent color, the cottage glows like a lone lighthouse. Feels. The dinner table is pure theater, cold pasta and half-full wine glasses set for an audience that isn't there. At the head of it all, Sebastian speaks into a phone, his voice a low, steady stream of commands. Margarita swirls her wine. Feels. A perfect picture of practiced calm, completely ignoring the private war being staged just outside. Felt like I was on stage all day, she says, a dangerous glint in her eye. Honestly, one of the best days I've had in a long time. Feels. Sebastian doesn't even blink. Feels. Luigi, are you in position downstairs? A pause. Good. Move the boat to the backup cove within the hour. Kill the lights. Got it. From her end of the table, Arya just watches him. 2 weeks, only 14 days ago. Feels. This man was nothing but an arrogant stranger with a handsome face and a dangerous vibe. And now, her husband. The word feels wrong in her mouth, like a costume that doesn't fit. She tries to fight the pull. Feels. The undeniable magnetism he has in his element. The quiet power that demands obedience. The clear sense that he's playing chess while everyone else is just fumbling with checkers. No, not like her father at all. Feels. But her mother? Arya's gaze goes soft, lost in the dark water as years of psychological discipline kick in. The mind always runs to what it knows. Not because it's safe, but because the paths are already worn deep. Feels. She'd built an entire career studying exactly these patterns in others, and still, she walked right into this trap with her eyes wide open. How could this have possibly happened? The truth hits her with the force of a physical impact. It's real, solid, Feels, and she's just so tired of running from it. Sebastian. It's Alonso, his voice slicing through the quiet from the doorway. 2 cars we don't know just left town coming this way, and the yacht just dropped a speedboat into the water. Feels. Sebastian is on his feet in an instant, his entire body a loaded weapon, but his movements are still impossibly smooth. A quick glance at the clock. 9 p.m. They'll have us boxed in within the hour. The main push will come around 11. Feels. His eyes scan the room, a general surveying the battlefield. Margarita, Vince, Luigi, you're the bait. Everyone else, stay hidden. They can't know our true strength. Nods ripple through the room. The unit understands. Then Sebastian turns to Arya. Feels. Extending his hand palm up. An offering, not an order. Come with me. The bedroom feels suffocating with both of them inside. He closes the door, crosses the room, and frames her face with his hands. For a man about to direct a war, Feels, his touch is impossibly gentle. Feels. The kiss is soft, tender. It feels completely wrong for this moment. What was that for? Her voice is a tightrope stretched to its limit. In 2 hours, this house will be crawling with men who want to kill us. How can you be so calm? Feels. He pulls her down onto the bed, bringing them face to face. His thumb traces the line of her cheek with a gentleness that almost hurts. If this was all the time we had, he asks, his eyes holding hers, would you want to spend it panicking? Or like this? Feels. Arya shoves his chest and sits up. We've known each other for 2 weeks. Don't you dare try to tell me you're in love with me. Sebastian just leans on an elbow, those green eyes stripping away every one of her defenses. Feels. How long does it take to fall in love? You tell me, doctor. What's the official research say? She opens her mouth to argue, but the words won't come, and he knows it. The moment you fell into my lap and looked up at me with those eyes. Feels. His voice drops to a murmur. I knew I would be with you, that you were it. Because you orchestrated it. She shoots back, her words laced with accusation. No. He takes her hand, pressing it flat against the hard wall of his chest. Feels. His heart hammers against her palm, a rhythm too frantic, too powerful to be an act. This was never part of the plan. It's just this. He covers her hand with his, holding it there. Sometimes a few seconds is all you need. Feels. His words settle inside her chest like a stone. Why me? The question tears out of her before she can stop it. A raw, fragile sound that betrays every wall she has ever built. Why would you ever fall for me? A faint smile touches his lips, softer now. Feels. You're waiting for the textbook answer, aren't you? I bet you have one ready to go. He closes the last inch of space between them, but I'll tell you what I see. His fingers trace her jawline, impossibly light. That distance you keep in your eyes feels like you're already planning every way out, even when you're desperate to stay. He brushes a loose strand of hair from her cheek. I see the way you give me your body, but snatch your soul right back so you can stay in control. It's that beautiful, feels maddening contradiction. Feels. The scene opens not on an action, but on a vivisection of the soul. He watches her, seeing her inability to breathe as her body's own quiet confession. His words are a scalpel. Feels, methodically peeling back the layers of her carefully built professional armor. You tell me to keep my distance, he says, laying bare the central conflict of her entire life. And right here, we witness the master psychologist, Feels, an expert at reading everyone else, suddenly become transparent, her own defenses dismantled piece by piece. He doesn't see the mask. He sees the vulnerability you're trying to bury, the fire she worked so hard to smother. In this one moment, Feels, the story suggests true intimacy isn't about two people meeting halfway. It's a terrifying act of perception, where one soul finally sees another more clearly than they see themselves. Feels. And then, a single tear. The floss no comfort, only collision, pressing his forehead to hers, a communion of shared darkness. The kiss begins as a question, a soft, searching pressure that quickly hardens into a demand. Feels. In that instant, the balance shifts. His hands, which once held her face like something sacred, now explore and possess. His voice is a raw whisper. What is this? Not a plea for an answer, but a desperate need to name this feeling. Feels, to cage the wild thing between them. Feels. His plea goes beyond the physical, a demand for something deeper. It's not just your body I need your soul stripped bare. It is the language of total ownership, where devotion becomes a form of divine possession. Feels. The moonlight itself sets the stage, casting them in silver and shadow, a world with no color, only truth. Her story comes in two parts. First, the act of pulling him down to her, and second, the words she admits have always terrified her. I love you. Feels, she says, not as a confession, but as an oath, the last wall turning to dust as her eyes lock with his, sealing the vow. Feels. Their union is a world created and destroyed in a single moment, a breath held outside of time itself. He never looks away from her, an intimacy so absolute that all other realities simply fall away. I love you. Feels, is the sound of his own control shattering, a perfect echo of her surrender. They are a tangle of limbs, two separate souls forging into one. But the scene is already cut, juxtaposed with the approaching darkness. Armed men, a waiting yacht. Feels. The instruments of their violent world are already closing in. For a few perfect seconds, though, they found the one thing truly worth dying for. Feels. The sanctuary is obliterated by a violent hammering on the door, a percussion of ruin. Reality in all its brutality floods the room. For a heartbeat, Arya feels safe against his chest. A final deep breath before the tidal wave crashes down. Feels. Margarita doesn't enter. She explodes into the scene, a harbinger of chaos. Her words, "They're here, Seb," are a trigger. The lovers vanish. In their place, two fugitives, fumbling with clothes, desperate for escape. His grip on her arm is hard. Feels, promising a bruise, a stark reminder that in their world, even protection is an act of violence. Feels. The descent is a pilgrimage into the family's concrete soul. Down here, the sterile, brutalist lines of a military bunker wage war on Arya's understanding of her own blood. Racks of firearms stand not as tools, but as relics of a hidden faith. Feels. The chilling knowledge that her mother walked these halls forces a confrontation with the void in her own history. It is a moment of pure psychological fracture. As soldiers glide with practiced economy, Sebastian's voice, calm and clear, Feels, proves his place in this liturgy of violence, carving out the universe that now separates his world from the one she thought was real. Feels. Here the heart collides with the code. Sebastian's vow to stand with my men isn't a choice, it's a submission to the sacred archetype of the syndicate leader. The king does not abandon his post. Arya's protest, "You are not staying here," Feels, is a desperate cry from a different world, one where a single sacred bond outweighs any law, but her will is rendered meaningless. Margarita's hand, a gentle weight on her arm, is the matriarch enforcing the patriarchal creed. They always come back. Feels, she murmurs, a statement not of hope, but of absolute faith in the resilience of the system and the men who serve it. Feels. Their final kiss is a lifetime of promises condensed into a single desperate moment against a ticking clock. 1 hour, he breathes, a covenant meant to carry her through the coming hell. As he turns away, he is reborn as a commander, heals, his movements drawn toward the instruments of annihilation, a secret panel, a bomb waiting like a coiled serpent. The cottage is no longer a home. It is a fortress, a monument to the paranoia that is their true inheritance. Arya is pulled back, heals, her body a passive vessel to be protected. Her silent prayer is a fragile whisper to an absent god, hoping their small human story won't be devoured by the epic of violence erupting around them. Heals. The scene splits, contrasting two forms of survival. Sebastian's world is one of violent purpose. The sharp click of a 40-minute timer, the cold weight of steel in his hand, his mind focused on a single imperative: return to her. Heals. He fights a war against the world. Arya's war, however, is being waged within. The suffocating dark of the tunnel becomes a map of her own guilt and fear. The certainty that leaving him is soul-deep wrong is a moral verdict. She runs to live, heals, but every step away from him feels like the ultimate betrayal of the love they just claimed. Heals. The dialogue in the tunnel is a masterclass in deception. Luigi's promise, "My only job is to get you to the boat in one piece," hangs in the air, heavy with the bitter taste of irony. He splits their group with the cold logic of a strategist. Heals, engineering a fatal vulnerability. From the darkness ahead, Margarita's shouts are a fading lifeline, an auditory measure of their growing separation and her own rising dread. Her last distant cry, "You damn well better be right behind us," is the final, feels, broken chord of their unity. It is the sound of a dawning, terrible suspicion, a premonition Arya already feels deep in her bones. Feels. The path through the tunnel becomes a physical manifestation of Arya's collapsing reality. Luigi veers from the known way, guiding her deeper into the earth, deeper into his trap. The sound of the ocean, once a promise of freedom, heals, now sounds like a final judgment. And the reveal, it is a perversion of sanctuary. They emerge not to salvation, but to her own cottage, the one place of safety now reframed as the end of the line. Heals. The knot of pure wrongness in her gut is instinct, screaming a truth the conscious mind has yet to accept. Home is where the monster was waiting. Heals. The betrayal is a clean, sharp, and absolute thing. The muzzle of Luigi's pistol, aimed at her heart, is the final punctuation to his quiet decree. In the distance, the symphony of a firefight provides the chaotic score for this intimate act of treason. Heals. His apology is a chilling piece of corporate language, framing a coup as a business transaction. The Ventus are out. His words erase them, turning Arya and Sebastian not into victims, but into liabilities. Heals. A rogue variable that threatened the established order. They were never kin, they were a complication. Heals. Luigi's monologue strips away the pretense of villainy. He sees himself as a preserver of the faith. Sebastian, he argues, is the heretic who will burn everything to the ground. It is the fear of this new world, Heals, the annihilation of their sacred deals and network that fuels his righteousness. Even now, Arya's mind scrambles, trying to map the shifting allegiances of this new bloody landscape. The muzzle flashes from the house are a violent Heals, repeating reminder of the cost. Her final question, a desperate appeal to their shared blood, their Venturo, is a prayer to a god that Luigi has just declared dead. Heals. For a heartbeat, Arya saw something flicker in Luigi's eyes, a ghost of regret perhaps. "You're not one of us." She stumbled, her heel scraping stone. Behind her, the dock and cottage were skeletal silhouettes against the vast Heals, black canvas of the Mediterranean, its surface trembling with the reflection of a raging fire. Then the world broke. The detonation at the house was a physical blow, a shockwave that tore through the ground and up her spine. Stone, timber, Heals, and history erupted in a towering pillar of flame. A wave of suffocating heat rolled over her, a blast furnace even from this distance. "Sebastian, are you out?" The question was a band of steel tightening around her heart, Heals, crushing the air from her lungs. "This isn't personal, Arya," Luigi's voice cut through the inferno's roar. "I'm sorry." The gun fired. The impact was a brutal shove, throwing her backwards into the waiting dark. Heals. Pain had not yet arrived. There was only the shock, a hollow numbness where agony would soon make its home. Her body knew it was violated long before her mind grasped the fact of the bullet. Her last sight was of the Venti house, Heals, surrendering itself to the fire, dissolving into a pyre of orange embers. Her last feeling was the ghost of Sebastian's lips on hers. She hit the water flat on her back, the same water where they had laughed together that morning. Heals. The cold was a physical thing, an absolute void that consumed her. Salt burned her eyes, her wound. Is this how it ends? She had just started to find the pieces of herself she'd kept buried for a lifetime. Heals. She had just learned to stop apologizing for her own life. She had just found someone who truly saw her, and a history she was just beginning to understand. And now it was all being erased. Heels. She was being swept off the board before she'd even learned the rules of the game. Heels. As the black water claimed her, her mind became a cinema of memory. Sebastian's green eyes, the pressure of his hands on her face, the way he looked at her as if she were the only fixed point in a spinning universe. 2 weeks, that was all it was. Heels. How strange, she thought, that these were the final images, not her music, not the life she built. Just him, just those 2 world-ending weeks. The cold was a leaden weight now, pulling her into the abyss, the pressure building in her chest. Heels. The fight was gone. Her eyes drifted shut, and then there was only a profound silence, a final, peaceful curtain falling as she sank deeper and deeper into the black. Heels. The pressure was an agony in her eyes, her lungs. The cold was no longer a sensation but a final terminal state of being. Her body was a distant problem, no longer her own. Her eyes closed, but then a collision. An arm, materializing from the void, heels, wrapped around her waist. She was slammed against a solid wall of muscle that immediately began to fight its way to the surface. The grip was iron, an unspoken oath not to let go, dragging her back from a world she had already surrendered to. Heels. Arya's eyes fluttered open, green. A pair of green eyes burned. She knew those eyes. Of course she did. She had memorized every shade. Sebastian. His face was a mask of furious focus, his dark hair a storm cloud around his head. Heels. One arm was a vice around her, the other was a turbine powering them upward. Heels. His legs were a piston driving them toward the surface. He hadn't died in that fire. He was here. He was real. They broke the surface in a single explosive burst, shattering the night. Arya's first breath was a raw, heels, violent gasp of salt and air that set her lungs ablaze. A scream ripped from the wound in her shoulder. She was choking on seawater, a desperate war between purging the ocean from her body and dragging air into it. Sebastian, she couldn't breathe. Heels. Her mind was a maelstrom. I thought you were dead. The house, Luigi shot me. He was one of us. Breathe. Sebastian held her, his body a fortress in the churning water. His voice a steady, unbreakable anchor, cut right through the chaos. Heels. I am here. It all went exactly as planned. Just breathe, Bella. But her world was spinning into nothing. Turning in his arms, she saw only devastation. In the distance, the main house burned like a funeral pyre against a black, starless sky. Further out, Heels, the Lamberti yacht, also in flames, listed surrendering to the dark water. What? Sebastian steered her to something floating nearby. A small, black zodiac. He lifted her in, his touch gentle as he laid her down. Am I dying? The question was so small. Heels. A child's whisper in the dark. A twitch pulled at his lips. Not the arrogant smirk she knew. This was something else, something broken. No, love. Heels. He shot you with a blank. No bullet, but the blast can still burn at this range. It's gonna hurt like hell, but you are not dying. He pushed her jacket aside, his eyes fixed on her shoulder. The fabric was scorched, the skin beneath a raw, angry red. Heels. A shallow graze cut across the muscle, the edges already blossoming into a dark bruise. See, his touch on the wound was impossibly gentle. Grazed you, bruised you. It'll be sore, but you're okay. Arya just stared, her mind a blank slate. Heels. The pieces wouldn't fit. What is happening, Sebastian? I don't understand. He pulled the starter cord. The engine sputtered, then screamed. I couldn't pull you into this life, Bella. His voice was raw, almost swallowed by the engine's roar. Heels. I love you too much to watch you burn. I'm sending you home. But for it to stick, everyone has to believe you're dead. The raft picked up speed, slicing through the black water. Once they were clear of the burning cottage, Heels. Sebastian took out a small remote. He pressed the button. The motorboat at the dock didn't just explode. It simply ceased to exist. Flash of white-hot light. An orange flower of fire bloomed in the night, raining down shrapnel. Heels. Arya watched the Venti house burn. Watched the yacht sink. Watched her own arrival get erased from the world. Each image a brand on her soul. Sebastian steered them toward a different cove entirely. Heels. As they moved through the darkness, he began to dissect the night's performance. The plan changed at the last minute. His eyes never left the water ahead. Only Luigi and I knew. Everyone else, Margarita, Alfonso, Vince, Heels, every last one, they have to believe you are gone, even them. The fewer who know the truth, the safer you are. Arias worked in slow motion, trying to connect the chilling facts. Why? Diego's people were watching, so were the Lambertas. Heels. Sebastian's jaw was a line of steel. They saw Luigi shoot you. They saw you go into the water. They now believe he's one of them, which lets him work for me from the inside. The cold, terrible logic finally started to take shape. Eels. You're setting him up as a double agent. He's already inside. The two men who escaped, I let them go. They'll report the Ventus are wiped out, that you are dead, and that Luigi has flipped. Sebastian finally turned, his gaze meeting hers in the darkness. Eels. And while they believe that story, you disappear. New name, new life. Safe. A surge of pure through her shock, her hands balling into fists. How could you not tell me? Her voice was a blade. I thought I was dying, Sebastian. Eels. I thought. Her throat closed. You let me believe I was going to die. His face hardened, his gaze snapping back to the water. If you knew, you couldn't have faked it. Diego's men were watching. Eels. They needed to see a real death. His voice dropped. I'm sorry, Bella. It had to look real. Arya blinked, the world a blurry, impossible nightmare. So what now? She watched his rigid silhouette against the black sky. Eels. What will you do? Sebastian looked toward the shore, where a car waited like a shadow. Now, Bella, as a man returned from the dead, I have given Diego and the Lambertus a very good reason to never cross me again. Of all the assassins they sent, Eels, only 2 are alive, and only because I allowed it. He looked back at her. I put Luigi where I need him. I've made you safe. Now, I go back to work, back to Sicily, back to my life. The engine died as they hit the shore, and then she heard it. The deep, Eels, rhythmic chop of a helicopter. Eels. Sebastian's face was carved from stone. Now I go back to my life. The words hit her like a physical blow, followed by the sharper pain of disbelief. She could only stare, her expression a mask of pure betrayal. What about us? Eels. A shadow passed over his features. He swallowed hard. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, hollow. Love is sacrifice, isn't it? His eyes held an entire universe of pain. To keep you safe, I have to let you go. Eels. It is the hardest thing I have ever done. The raft scraped the rocks. Sebastian was out in a flash, pulling it ashore. The helicopter waited 30 yards away, rotors spinning, ready to flee. He nodded toward it. Eels. 20 minutes to the airport. He reached into a waterproof bag and pulled out a passport, sealed in plastic. Your name is Bella Adoretti, Italian-American. There's 50 million in an account under that name. Fury lit her face. Eels. Her hands shook as she took the document. I don't want your money. It's not mine. His eyes locked on hers. It is yours. From the house, from your mother. Aura would have wanted you to have it. She would have wanted you free of this life. Safe. Eels. Able to build whatever future you wanted. Tears blurred her vision. She blinked them back, hating herself for the weakness. So you had it all planned. Every single detail. Eels. Her control finally shatters. Did you ever love me? Or was I just another piece on your board? Sebastian's own composure breaks. In one motion, he pulls her to him, the kiss a brutal, desperate thing, as if trying to brand the memory of her onto his very soul. Eels. When he pulls back, his eyes are glittering with unshed tears. If I didn't love you this much, his voice cracks. If I loved you any less, you would be on a plane to Sicily with me right now. But this is how much I love you. Eels. It means I can't let the fire take you too. I should have had a choice. Arya's hands fisted his jacket, clinging to him at the very end. This isn't just your decision. You don't get to. Because this time, he cut in, Eels, you would have chosen with your heart. Eels. His touch is a paradox, yet utterly final, as his fingers unlatch hers from his shirt. Single act of release, he becomes her protector by becoming her destroyer. It is the cold, brutal math of a man who knows that to save her, Eels, he must first burn her world to the ground, and himself along with it. Near the waiting helicopter, a shape moves against the violent thrum of the blades. Miss Adoretti, we have to go. The name feels alien, an echo from a life that is no longer hers. Eels. In 2 chaotic weeks, she had torn down a lifetime of lies to find her own truth. A woman who found her mother's history, her own strength, and a man who saw through every wall she ever built. Eels. And now, with that same terrible clarity, he backs her back into a world of make-believe, alone, wearing a name that feels like a stranger's coat. Sebastian steps back, Eels, and the dark water between them widens into an abyss, a physical scar representing their new reality. Sebastian, you need to leave. His voice is a frayed, broken thing. Please, Bella, don't make this any harder. An argument dies in her throat. Eels. Every instinct screams at her to fight, to refuse, but his eyes hold a calm, unwavering certainty. She sees the unassailable logic carved into his face. The choice was made ages ago. He had already cast her away. Eels. And the most soul-crushing part of it all was that she understood. She forces herself from the raft, legs trembling on the slick stones as a uniformed man approaches, his presence cold and detached. Feels. The man repeats his order. Miss Adoretti, it's time. Her eyes find Sebastian one last time, a figure carved from stone on the pitching boat. The inferno of the Venti estate throws a flickering, hellish orange across one side of his face, Feels, leaving the other steeped in shadow. A man of fire and darkness, beautiful, untouchable. A memory before he is even gone. I'm never going to see you again, am I? The question is a raw, exposed nerve. What breaks on his face is not a smile, not a smirk, Feels, but something far more fundamental. Something that shatters. I love you, Ara. It's not an answer to her question. It's a eulogy. A final, definitive end. A profound agony tears through her as she turns towards the helicopter. Feels. Each step a deliberate act of carving out her own heart. The ground changes from sand to stone to the cold, unforgiving metal of the aircraft. Anonymous hands guide her inside as she fumbles with the seatbelt, her fingers feeling numb and miles away. Feels. The helicopter rotors hammered the air, a force you could feel in your bones. Arya's face was pressed to the cold, vibrating glass, her breath instantly fogging the world away. Down below, a solitary silhouette on the shoreline. Sebastian. Feels. Head tilted back, he watched her climb into the endless black. He didn't wave, not a single gesture, just a statue, hands hanging uselessly as the chasm between them grew. His face became a watercolor smear. Feels. The house fire behind him now just a dying spark. 2 weeks of beautiful, terrible passion, reduced to a pinprick of light and then swallowed by the night. She squeezed her eyes shut, a useless defense. The image was already burned behind them. Feels. Sebastian watching her leave from a coast of ashes, the ruins of their world. Feels. That final picture became her own private ghost. For an entire year, just before sleep, she would see him standing there on that shore. Every single night, she felt it again, the moment the man she loved let her go. Feels. Arya Ellis walked back into America with an Italian passport reading Bella Adoretti and a driver's license with her own name. 2 women in one body, both feeling like a lie. A full year. 12 long months since she'd navigated Detroit Metro. Feels. Her heart pounding a frantic rhythm, sure that any second a hand would grab her shoulder, asking questions she could never answer. A surreal fever dream she'd barely survived. But the hand never fell. Feels. No one ever asked, and in the silent year that followed, no one ever called. Not Sebastian, not Margarita, not Alonso. The silence was a physical thing. No calls, no emails, not a single word to break the crushing emptiness. Feels. Italy started to feel like a dark fairy tale she'd made up. The stone house in Scario, the garden path where she'd almost stumbled, and the man with green eyes who was there to catch her. It was all dissolving into a ghost story. All of it, Feels, except for one thing. Her nightly ritual. Just before she let exhaustion take her, she would close her eyes and summon the feeling one last time. Sebastian's mouth on hers, his hands framing her face. That final kiss on the beach, Feels, the helicopter blades screaming above them, the taste of salt and desperation on their lips. Feels. It was the taste of the ocean mixed with pure soul-deep despair. She remembered his fingers digging into her hair, as if trying to memorize the very feel of her, and it was pain. A sharp, constant agony, a wound she picked at every night. Feels. Refusing to let it scar over. The need was impossible to break. 5 months after coming back, she opened her own therapy practice. Her clinic was 10 floors up in downtown Detroit, with windows that looked out over the city she was born in. Her city, Feels. The one she came back to reclaim. Her patients would pour out their souls, stories of betrayal, of love that had died or just faded away. And she would listen, her professional mask cemented in place, taking notes, asking questions. Feels. While their every word just hollowed out the void inside her. Feels. That night, Arya was at her desk, watching the sunset bleed across the Detroit skyline. One last session to go. She rolled her shoulders, fighting the tension that lived there now. Her thoughts drifted, as they always did, to that first afternoon in Scario. Feels. The garden. The stumble, his eyes meeting hers. She whispered it to the empty room, her voice a fragile thing against the city's hum. Arya, it was a dream. You have to stop living in a dream. Her intercom buzzed. Dr. Ellis. Feels. Pam's cheerful voice cut through the quiet. Your final patient is here, a Mr. Benedict. Arya grabbed her notebook, flipping to a clean page, pen ready. The mask slid perfectly back on. His full name? A slight pause. Feels. Pam's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, the one she used for handsome clients. Nicholas Benedict. 37, and dresses like a dream. Another beat of silence. He listed grief and loss as his reason for coming. Feels. A faint smile played on Arya's lips. Pam's little pre-session reports were part of her routine. All right, Pam, send him in. She stood, smoothing down her skirt. She took her usual 3 steps to the center of the room, a small ritual to ground herself. Heels. You're a professional, Arya. The second that door opens, your life goes on hold. Everything you carry gets left outside. Heels. The door swung open. The first thing she saw were his shoes. Polished leather. Unmistakably Italian. Speaking of a kind of wealth that doesn't need to shout. Then, the perfect tailored linen trousers. A jacket that probably cost more than her first car. Heels. Her eyes traveled upward, and the world stopped spinning on its axis. Green eyes, sharp, achingly familiar, looked right into her from across the room. He shut the door behind him, his focus entirely on her. The lock clicked home. That faint, Heels, ghost of a smile she knew so well touched his lips, knowing, subtle, and completely devastating. His skin was still tan from a sun she couldn't even imagine anymore, and then his scent hit her, salt and cedar, and something wild and elemental underneath. Heels. The smell of the ocean, the smell of the earth. Bella. Her name was a low, raw sound torn from his throat, thick with a year's worth of waiting. Arya's mouth dropped open, but nothing came out. Heels. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a prisoner trying to break free. Sebastian Biano, the man who haunted her days and owned her dreams for 12 unbearable months. The man whose kiss was her nightly prayer. The man she loved, still loved, Heels, would always love, was standing in her office, as if pulled from her own grief-stricken mind. He crossed the room in 2 long, deliberate strides. Arya. Her own name, from his lips, sounded like a final confession. He shook his head slowly. Heels, his eyes drinking her in. Heels. You look incredible. With those 2 words, the spell was broken. Her hand moved on pure instinct, far faster than her brain could ever react. The crack of the slap echoed in the silent room, snapping his head to the side. Fire burned in her eyes. Heels. Nicholas Benedict, she spat. But Sebastian was quicker. One hand shot out, locking around her wrist. His other arm snaked around her waist, yanking her hard against his body. And then his mouth crushed down on hers. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't a question. Heels. It was a conquest. For a split second, she was frozen. And then her body remembered, a memory so deep it bypassed all reason. She knew him. The year apart had done nothing, absolutely nothing. Heels. If anything, that year had only made it stronger, more dangerous. When he finally tore his mouth from hers, they were both fighting for breath. His hands came up to cup her face, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Arya, my love, Heels, I've missed you more than words can say. He leaned in again, and this time the kiss was tender, almost like worship. I couldn't come for you, he whispered, against her lips, his voice raw, almost broken. Not until it was over, Heels. Not until I knew you were completely safe. Arya's hands found his chest, feeling the solid, real warmth of him. She pressed her face into his shirt, breathing him in. Home. He smelled like home. And now Sebastian's arms tightened, Heels holding her like he would never let go. Heels. Now, I want my wife back, and I'm never letting you go again. She tilted her head back to look at him, a storm of anger, love, and relief raging inside her. A whole year, Sebastian, she said, her voice shaking. An entire year. Heels. How did you know I hadn't moved on? That I didn't find someone else? That arrogant, beautiful smile she first saw in that Italian garden spread across his face, the kind that made you want to slap him and kiss him at the same time. Heels. His lips found the soft skin of her neck. Because you leave your apartment every morning at 8:30, he murmured, his mouth moving to the hollow of her throat. Heels. You eat lunch at your desk. It's almost always a salad. Another kiss right below her ear. Your taste in wine's still terrible. That bottle you bought yesterday probably gave you a headache. His mouth traveled up her jawline. 2 months ago, Heels, you met that doctor from the hospital. You went to dinner. His eyes met hers again, glittering with smug certainty. But I saw your face. You weren't interested in the slightest. Arya pushed against his chest, trying to make some space. Heels, even as her body screamed not to. You had me followed this whole time. Did you honestly believe? Sebastian closed the distance in an instant. That I wouldn't protect you, even from halfway across the world? Heels. You couldn't send one text? Her voice cracked, anger a thin sheet of ice over a year of pain. Just to let me know you were alive. It was all I needed. His fingers threaded through her hair, the pressure gentle, grounding. Do you think that was easy for me? Heels. To see you only in photographs, to watch you on a screen, to touch you with my eyes but not my hands, to hear about your day from an underling and not from you. He pressed his forehead to hers, but that's over. The Lambertas are finished. Diego is dead. Heels. There is no one left to threaten you. For now, Arya whispered, blinking against a sudden burn. For now we're together. His thumb traced her lower lip. I am here with you, to start our family. His gaze was absolute. And to run the clan from this city. Feels like Venti, she breathed out the name. Feels. Just like Oraventi, the full weight of that comparison descends upon her. This was her mother's life, the life she hid so carefully, the one Arya had now inherited, not by choice, but by fate. What if this isn't what I want? The question escapes her, feels, but her body betrays her instantly, leaning into his heat, aching for his touch in an act of premature surrender. A knowing smile plays on Sebastian's lips. He can see the war raging inside her. Your body, Bella, is telling me a different story, feels. His fingertips ghost over her mouth. His palm comes to rest over her heart, feeling its wild rhythm against her ribs. Everything about you says you want me. Your pulse, your breathing, the way you melt, even as you fight so hard to be angry, feels. Arya's hand shot up, yanking his mouth down to hers in a kiss that held a year's worth of loneliness, fury, and a desperate, all-consuming love, feels. When they finally break apart, her voice finds its strength. So what's the next move, Mr. Nicholas Benedict? His smile turns darker, edged with wicked intent. Now, my love, my wife. He lets the words settle in the air between them. First, feels, a proper wedding. The one you are owed, not a rushed ceremony with a terrified official and armed guards. His hand slides to her abdomen, his palm spreading out with a sense of finality. Then we find a home. The location is entirely up to you, feels. A new fire lights his gaze. And after that, we will raise our children. His voice lowers, thick with promise. But before any of that, we should probably get to work on that last step. Immediately, feels. Arya grabs his tie, pulling his face down to hers. No more false names. Sebastian's smile is immediate. Done. We live where I choose. He concedes without a flicker of hesitation. Agreed, you will shield our family from the business. Feels. Nothing can ever put them in danger. His expression turns grave, without question. Arya's grip tightens on the silk tie, drawing him so close their breaths become one. And if you ever, leave me again, her eyes lock with his. I promise you, feels, I will be the one who kills you. Sebastian's arms circle her, binding her to him. I am never leaving your side again, Bella. Never. He lifts her straight off the ground. On pure instinct, her legs lock around his waist, feels, their bodies fitting together perfectly, as if the last year had been nothing more than a long, terrible dream. Feels. Sebastian, she tries to sound authoritative. The words come out as a breathless whisper. This is my professional office. He crosses the room to the leather sofa by the window, that devastating smile etched on his face. Feels. Aren't we meant to be processing your grief and loss, Dr. Venti? His eyes are alight with heat and undiluted mischief. We shouldn't waste another single moment. The last rays of the Detroit sun slant through the glass, feels, wrapping them in a golden haze as he lays her down. Outside, the city moves on. Horns blare. People rush home. The world keeps turning. But inside the walls of that office, for just the two of them, time itself had ceased to matter. Feels. Sebastian's mouth found hers again, slower this time, deeper. It was a vow, a reclaiming, a homecoming. Feels. Arya's fingers tangle in his hair, pulling him closer still. 12 months of saturations and memories that had begun to fray like old film. 12 long months of the stained, exhausting lies she whispered to herself. That a life without this man was even possible. In an instant, it all dissolved into nothing. She had left her heart behind in Scario, buried and forgotten, but Sebastian Biano had just crossed an entire ocean to give it back to her.